What is up, my good people of the internet? Happy to be here with you, hanging out where sports truly meets that thing called life. Wake up call with Dan Tortora. We got new digs here. We have the studio. We're still in the same area, but we have a new atmosphere here. Got a bunch of memorabilia, different things meaningful to me and to the show that are strewn about now and extended out. I get to walk around. I get to have some fun here in the studio. I don't have to be in one place. So I love it. I'm excited. I'm Italian and Hispanic, so my body has to move. I have to do something. So now I have the opportunity to do that. Very excited on today's broadcast that we are going to be joined momentarily by Dave Pasiak inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin'. Dave is going to be joining us here to speak on his Buffalo Bills. He's been an avid Buffalo Bills fan for a very long time, and we're also going to be joined here by Papa Joe in just a little bit. So Dave's going to be talking with us on the Buffalo Bills, and then we will be joined in just a little while by Papa Joe, and we're going to keep with the college football and NFL conversation. Dave will speak on the Bills, the NBA, the move of Pascal Siakam. How do I feel about it as a Raptors fan? We'll get into all of that and the state of collegiate athletics right now, how things are in college sports. So a lot of great stuff coming up. And then PJ in hour number 2, and we'll carry with the Jacksonville Jaguars and more pieces after that. So with that being said, we're picture in picture with Dave Pasiak here. Very happy to have Dave as always. Dave, good morning. How are you?
Doing good, Dan. It's been a little bit. How you doing?
Yeah, it's been a minute for sure, Dave. So I know with your team with the Hornets out in Vermont, I know that you guys have gone through the injury bug. People, you and I were talking off the air about how that affects teams, how it affected my Jacksonville Jaguars this season. How have you tried to navigate through that? When obviously you've been a longtime basketball coach, injuries are things that a lot of times you can't control what's going on with them, and you kind of just have to rehab and hope for the best and navigate through it. So how have you kind of attacked that as a head coach and try to keep your team honed in when they're going through stuff that obviously is out of your control?
Yeah, I think, well, everybody has to deal with it during a season in every sports at every level. At some point or another, you're going to face some adversity. It's just this year for us has been like everything you can imagine at one time or another. I think you can't frame it. You can't dwell on it with your players. You just gotta have to kind of take a next man up mentality. Um, I think from a coaching standpoint, what you're dealing with a lot of times is constantly retooling what you're doing. You come into the season with an idea of what your team's going to look like and where your strengths and weaknesses are going to be and how you're going to use people. And then when you lose key components, you're kind of retooling on the fly without having the benefit of of preseason and a significant amount of practice time to retool. So you're making a lot of adjustments on, just 1 or 2 days notice, or just going into a game without a whole lot of practice time to kind of recalibrate your team.
Yeah, and for you as a coach, you've coached for decades. You've had success. You've made some milestones here recently. How do you grow and advance and challenge yourself when adversity hits?
Well, I think you got to be player centered first.
Yeah.
So, like I said, you can't feel sorry for yourself because the games are going to keep going on, right? And you have to come out and play. I think that as a coach, it does certainly present challenges in that you have to be constantly assessing and reassessing what you're doing with your team, who you're playing, how you're playing, rotations, minutes, schemes. Those obviously are going to, when you lose a key component, especially on short notice. I told you off the air, the guy that we anticipated being our starting point guard had surgery after the third game. So that really changed significantly how we expect to play. So I think as a coach, when those things happen, you challenge yourself to be able to reassess on the fly and tweak what you're doing on the fly to try to keep your team at whatever level they're capable of playing at.
Yeah, and being able to do that and be able to, like you said, learn on the fly, do the things that you need to do. Obviously, my hopes and my prayers for you and the team, for people to get healthy, for things to obviously get better, and for you to find a path forward here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life, here with Dave Pasiak. So always hoping the best for you, Dave. And like I've told you many, many times, appreciate your friendship more than anything else. So I definitely can look to your Buffalo Bills and say, as you've gone through adversity there as a coach and you continue to work through all of that, the Buffalo Bills went through their adversity during this season, started out hot, started out strong. I picked them to win the division. People are feeling good about it. This is year 3, I would say, in a row where there's been a lot of hype and a lot of that expectation for the Buffalo Bills. Then during the season, things got a little bit strange, got a little bit weird, got a little bit concerning. They played their way out of the playoffs, and then they went into the last week of the regular season in Week 18 in a very interesting scenario. They were out of the playoffs going into the game against Miami, but if they beat Miami, they would come into the playoffs, jump Miami, win the division of the AFC East, and get the number 2 seed behind Baltimore. What was that like as a Bills fan to walk into Week 18 going, we're not in, but if we win, we're in, and we get to go home, and we become number 2?
Yeah. So I think that, from the team standpoint, they've kind of been in playoff mode football for quite a while. But as a fan, you go into that last weekend, and my thought process was, beat Miami, and the Bills got a great chance to go to Super Bowl because, they're going to get probably 2 home games in that case. Yeah. And if Baltimore gets upset, they get 3 home games. So, you feel like as a fan, if you can get past Miami, great chance to go to Super Bowl. And that game against the Dolphins was certainly in question for quite a long time. Bills really turned it late in the game in the fourth quarter with the punt return and everything. I think a little bit of pressure was off when your Jags got beat, unfortunately, for you. So I think that took a little bit of the pressure off in that the Bills were going to be in the playoffs regardless of the outcome. Yeah. But certainly, had they lost to Miami, I think the path to get through the AFC and get to the Super Bowl would have been a lot more daunting.
Well, yeah, and you bring up that point, Jacksonville, and I said this to some fans, and some people didn't like that I said this, but it was the absolute truth. I said to Bills and Pittsburgh fans, you're welcome. And, it was literally written before the game. If Jacksonville loses, then they would send both Pittsburgh and Buffalo to the postseason. Kind of incredible how Jacksonville couldn't send themselves, but they sent not 1 but 2 in their place. So like you said, there was some edge off there for Buffalo. Obviously, Pittsburgh had to win and have Jacksonville lose, or I think Buffalo lose. One of those opportunities. There was a few other things. But going into Week 17, Dave, the interesting thing for me, because I went through, the NFL sends us, in the media, they send us all the scenarios. They literally break down every single team, anything that can happen that specific week. And in Week 17, the Buffalo Bills had 14 different ways to get into the playoffs, and none of them came to pass. What was that like? Like you said, they've been in playoff mode, like you said, for the last 6 weeks of the regular season. To know in Week 17 that there was 14 scenarios and none of them happen, is that typical Buffalo? Like, hey, there's 14 ways to get in. Everybody else has 5, 3, 1, 2 ways to get in. Buffalo has 14, and none of them happen in Week 17.
Well, it was a weird deal because if you back up a week prior to that, Week 16, everything broke right for the Bills except for 1 game, right? So after Week 16, then they had their playoff destiny in their own hands for the first time, since they were 500 midseason. So after Week 16, you're feeling pretty good, and then Week 17, there was a bunch of windows, to clinch a playoff spot, and like you said, none of them happened. So now you're going into last week, a lot of weight on the Miami game, and this thing doesn't go right, season could be over quickly. So it was certainly a roller coaster because after 16, you felt really good about where the Bills stood. After Week 17, it's we get the win, probably going to be in. none of those things materialized. Now you're down to week 18, and it's basically all or nothing. Because I honestly, you knew Baltimore was probably going to get beat because they were going to play all the backups,
Yeah.
and you figured Jacksonville would win also in a must-win game. Although the Jags kind of really faltered down the stretch, injuries to Lawrence and whatnot. So like it was a really uneasy feeling going into the last week, but it was also a really optimistic feeling because if you get past Miami, then the road kind of goes through Buffalo for at least a couple rounds of the playoffs. So
Yeah, and now we have this scenario, you and I were talking about it off the air, where the Buffalo Bills play the Kansas City Chiefs again, but this time they play them at home. Bring me into your feelings as a Buffalo Bills fan, knowing that this Kansas City rematch of the rematch of the rematch of the rematch, it just feels like this is always something that is in the way of Buffalo. Now that this game is being played in upstate New York, where there was, 3 mountains of snow that came in the last week or so. And it continued to snow on Monday. It continued to snow on Tuesday, I believe. It might be snowing down there right now. What's your take on the fact that now here comes Kansas City? We know they could play in the cold. We know that they could play in not great weather. They've shown that. And Pat Mahomes has shown when it's very cold in Kansas City they can hang. Now they're going to be in Buffalo. This game is once again in front of the Bills and could prevent them from the Super Bowl or could help them make that jump to get one step closer. How do you feel about Buffalo this season against Kansas City in Buffalo for the first time when typically they're heading to Missouri?
Well, certainly glad to have the game at home for a change. It's like Bills have had to go through Kansas City, it seems like every year recently. And I think that still getting my voice back. Sorry.
Okay.
I think the one really interesting thing, I think, how is Mahomes going to react? Because Mahomes has never played a road playoff game in his NFL career, which is a really interesting stat. So I think how Mahomes reacts, and I mean, he's a phenomenal quarterback. I mean, you got arguably, the 2 best quarterbacks in the league going at it. I mean, Jackson can make an argument, and certainly Purdy's had a great year with San Francisco. But, over, I would say, the last 3 to 5 years in the NFL, you're looking at probably the 2 premier quarterbacks going head-to-head again. And Mahomes doesn't have, I think, the same weapons that he's had in previous years with the Chiefs. But the flip side of that, I think Kansas City is a little more stout defensively than they've been.
Yeah.
And maybe built to handle cold weather and inclement conditions a little bit better than they have in other years. So I think the weather standpoint, I think both teams are equipped to deal with that. Buffalo, I think, is a little bit is well equipped to deal with that because you got Allen, and they ramp up his running in the postseason, and then kind of the dimension the Bills haven't had in the past is James Cook. And having that running game that can put together sustained drives with the game on the line, which they did against the Steelers, they did against the Dolphins. That sustained drive in the fourth quarter when you're trying to really control the game, control the outcome of the game. The concern a little bit for the Bills, we talked a little bit about dealing with adversity. I mean, the Bills have dealt with adversity on the defensive side all season.
Right.
Key guys being out of the lineup seemingly every week somebody else is going down. So I think the health of the Bills defense this weekend is going to go a long way towards the outcome of the game too.
Yeah, and we've seen these injuries, the injury bug for the Buffalo Bills, that being a theme of what we're talking about this morning with teams in general, be it on the court or the field or wherever. And Buffalo has dealt with not just guys going down, but they're big guys, they're premier guys. And we look to these last couple seasons before this season, and they lose a game, they're out of the playoffs, and what do the fans say? Well, would have been nice to have this guy, would have been nice to have that guy, would have been nice to have Hyde, would have been nice to have Milano, would have been nice to have. And, they've navigated through a lot of things. Hopefully they can continue to do that. There's this, you brought up Josh Allen and his running ability. there's been the conversation about, other teams in a game, in a playoff game like last week, in a situation that Josh was in when he took off and ran for the 52-yard touchdown, that somebody would have ran as a quarterback, and then they would have slid and gotten themselves down after the first down. He keeps going, doesn't mind the contact and gets after it. The Josh Allen factor, people talk about him. I think it's fair to say that a lot of NFL fans, whether they like the Bills or not, give him credit as being a quarterback that is one of the best in the nation. He's also taken a lot of scrutiny, especially for the way that some playoff pieces have gone. Where do you put him in the grand scheme of things in today's NFL, knowing that he will put the team on his back and do things like that 52-yard run? He will consistently give them opportunities to win. Without Josh Allen, I don't even know if this is a playoff team in Buffalo, but he also takes more than his fair share of scrutiny. So what is the Josh Allen factor in your opinion?
Well, I think he's the perfect quarterback for Buffalo. Just for, a little bit going back to like the Jim Kelly days, where Jim Kelly was the perfect quarterback for Buffalo, for the city, for the environment, for the fan base. Especially the weather conditions. I think he's a guy because of his legs. So I'm certainly glad he's playing for the Bills and not somebody else. I think that whole draft, it's interesting when you think back to the year Josh Allen was drafted. He was the guy that everybody had the questions about. Can he make it? Can he translate to the NFL? Yeah. The two guys out of that, and then Jackson was drafted late first round, and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have turned out to be the two quarterbacks out of that draft that have thrived. And the guys that were picked in front of them are either out of the league or hanging on, or have been up and down. So, as a fan and somebody who's been a diehard Bills fan for a long time, I think he's the perfect quarterback for Buffalo, for the fan base, for the environment, the climate, everything. It kind of goes with the turf. He's a guy who will try to put the team on his back, and I think you've seen him mature every year as a quarterback in the league as far as his decision making. When to try to make the tough throw. And I mean, he makes throws on the move that very few people in the league can make. So sometimes you got to take a little bit of the risk with the reward that comes with that. But I think on balance, I think there's nobody better for the Bills.
Yeah, he definitely has been a game changer. I think he's ignited a fan base. I think he's brought in a lot of fans to Buffalo. And so, you could definitely see that. I would, and you brought up Jim Kelly, being a perfect quarterback for the Bills. You brought up Josh Allen now, and I would actually, when you look at the gap in between, I don't think there's been any other quarterback that's ignited the Buffalo Bills and the fan base and brought a new fan base there like Jim Kelly and like Josh Allen has done. And when you're not a Buffalo Bills fan, I still think people root for Josh Allen in a lot of ways. I think they enjoy it and seeing what he's done. What I like the most is Khalil Shakir when he had that last touchdown, when it was a one-possession game, 24-17, and in this last matchup that the Buffalo Bills had, the wild card round game that they were playing. And when they're in this matchup and he catches that ball, he comes over, grabs it, breaks a tackle, and he keeps going, and he pushes, and he pushes, and he gets his way into the end zone. And at the end of the game, the reporter, and I already knew what the answer was going to be. You kind of just vibed this with Josh. But at the end of the game, the reporter said, your touchdown that you had, and then Khalil Shakir's touchdown, which one do you think was like the bigger thing? Like, basically, if you're going to give a trophy at the end of the game, who are you going to give it to? You're going to give it to yourself, or you're going to give it to Khalil Shakir? He didn't even hesitate, breathe, anything. He said, Khalil, without doubt. When he got that touchdown at this time, and, we needed that and the separation. And so I think beyond the fact that he is a strong football player, beyond the fact that he has shown that he can do a lot of acrobatics and have a lot of success, is the humbleness, the selflessness, and the willingness to promote other people on his team. I think in my 20 years of broadcasting and in all of your time being a head coach, it's probably something you like to see too, is his character definitely precedes even his talent.
Yeah, that I mean, that's why he's emerged at a at a fairly young age as the locker room leader and the leader of the team. And I think he exhibited what he exhibits what all what guys with great leadership skills do. Deflects success to his teammates or to the people around him, and then when he's had instances where he's not played well, um, if they win, he'll deflect credit to the defense or special teams or James Cook or whatever. And games that they've lost where he's had poor games over the years, he's owned it. He said it, say like I stunk today, you know. Um, so I think he's exhibited great leadership, and I think he's um, earned the respect and the support of his locker room by doing that. And I think he's the unquestioned leader of the team, and um, the way he handles all of those situations, I think, has created that environment.
Yeah. Speaking here on the Buffalo Bills with Dave Pasiak this morning on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We're going to shift gears to the NBA. And you and I asked you to come on the show before this happened, and then it finally ends up happening. I'm sure if I didn't bring it up, you were going to bring it up. But Pascal Siakam getting traded from my Toronto Raptors. He has been mentioned in trades for 2 or 3 years up to this point. He has been traded. It has happened. Pascal Siakam, the one gem left on this team, with all the moves that they've made, that last piece of looking back to 2019 and looking back to their NBA championship and everything. It was, okay, Pascal Siakam, are they going to move him? Are they not going to move him? How is this thing going to go down? So this is what happens in the trade. Pascal Siakam goes to the Indiana Pacers, and the Indiana Pacers get him. They also get a future second-round pick via the Pelicans, who are the third team involved in this trade, the New Orleans Pelicans, the Toronto Raptors, and the Indiana Pacers. So Christian Coloco, got waived by the Raptors in this, and the Pacers, like I said, get Pascal Siakam, a future second-round pick from the Pelicans. The Raptors receive Bruce Brown from the Pacers, Kira Lewis and from the Pelicans, Jordan Nwora, who I covered in college, from the Pacers, 2024 first-round picks from the Pacers, which is massively huge because the Raptors, if you know the history, like I know my team since 1995 when they came in recent history, they historically will trade away first-round picks, and it's a very boring draft for a Raptors fan because you don't see them picking early or they pick later on, and they'll trade these picks away. Now they have two, not one, but two 2024 first-round picks, which I'm very excited about, via the Pacers, and a conditional 2026 first-round pick from the Pacers as well. So they got draft capital. They got 3 players. They gave up Pascal Siakam, their all-star. So, Dave, how do you feel about it?
Well, first of all, with the NBA trade deadline, a lot of times the rumors exceed the reality. And it's difficult to make deals sometimes in the NBA because you have to make salaries match. And like this deal wouldn't have happened had they not been able to loop in New Orleans to make the salaries line up. But it's definitely a win now move for the Pacers, and we're in a full rebuild for the Raptors, which is interesting because the Raptors really, we've talked in the past about this. They've been a team that traditionally has made incremental moves to try to stay competitive. Try to improve their standing incrementally without having to blow it all up. But like you said, he's the last holdout from the championship era, and making this move certainly puts them in rebuild. And it was kind of it's un-Raptor like in recent years in that, like you said, they acquired a bunch of draft capital.
Yeah.
Pacers moving Brown is kind of an interesting move because he was a big acquisition for them. But I think they feel like they traded up with Siakam, and it's definitely from a Pacers standpoint, it's definitely a win now move. And from a New Orleans standpoint, it's strictly a financial move, gets them under the cap. So we'll see how it plays out. I think we're not going to know the impact on Toronto's side for a little bit until we see how, how they use those draft picks, whether they, whether there's more moves coming. Um, if they're going to try to use those draft picks to acquire somebody, I don't think so. It looks like they're full rebuild, and they're trying to stock up on picks to retool the roster. But maybe something will be out there for them where they can flip those picks. See how that goes. I think we won't know the impact from a Raptors perspective for a little while yet. I think from a Pacers perspective, it's a win now move, and we'll see if this moves them into in a good position playoff wise. They've been an interesting team this year. Played really well in the in-season tournament. Kind of outside of the in-season tournament, struggle a little bit. But offensively, they've been a really prolific team. So I think adding a guy like Siakam could elevate the Pacers into that next tier of teams in the East.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at this. I'm just looking at the roster for the Raptors right now with this move. Jakob Peddle, their center, who has been out recently here. Scotty Barnes, R.J. Barrett, Bruce Brown, Emmanuel Quickly, who came in a trade, and in this as well. We've seen these moves come through, and as I'm looking through, I mean, Gary Trent Jr., he's been there for a little bit. Dennis Schrader, I mean, Grady Dick, who they drafted, Otto Porter Jr., up and down the line of this. I mean, this team looks like it is a team that's, and this is no knock on any of the guys on the team. I'm just looking at the roster. I'm looking at the depth right now. This looks like you said, it looks like a full rebuild. It looks like the Raptors have finally said, hey, we won a championship in 2019. Since then, we've had some, we kept a bunch of pieces together. Then we moved some things, and now, you're looking at this. There's no Van Vliet. There's no Pascal Siakam. There's other pieces that had moved prior to this, and it is definitely, like Lowry, who had moved obviously sooner. It's sad for me as a Raptors fan. I mean, as you can see over my shoulder, my "We the North" is right here. My flag is always up in the studio. It's hard, Dave, because I understand that at some point they needed to build. At some point, because you were talking about the purgatory that the Raptors are in. We've talked about it on the show over the last couple of years, that they're in this world where they're not necessarily building for the future and going to have those draft picks and whatnot because they had given them up. But at the same time, they're not going to win an NBA championship because they don't have enough pieces. So they've been sitting in this purgatory. So I knew eventually, you have to do it. I'm looking at a losing record right now. At the time we're talking of 16-25. I understand it. I get it. But the thing is, you went through it with Philadelphia. It was a rebuild to rebuild to rebuild to rebuild. And this is really a crucial time. How you draft, other moves you make, things that you see. This is where your scouting team has to be impeccable. They have to be incredible. They have to understand, let's go and get this piece on the cheap. Let's go and get that thing. Let's already think down the road, 3-4 months. We're going to go after these guys. We're already going to have some of these conversations and work some of this stuff out. In the draft, we're already looking at these players. We're already assessing what we're going to build through that, because you don't want to upset the young guys that you have. You don't want to upset the Scotty Barnes of the world, who's now maybe the face of the franchise at the moment. So it really comes down to everything they do from here is going to put them in one of two paths. They're going to be on the rebuild and keep moving forward, or they're going to be rebuilding, and then you and I are talking a decade from now and it still feels like they're fixing things. So this is where the crucial time comes in. It's bittersweet because, you've kind of accepted as a Raptors fan that you're not going to the playoffs type of thing. But at the same time, I'm willing to do this if 2 years from now there's a shot at the playoffs. I'm not feeling good about it if 5-6 years from now I'm like, Dave, I don't know what my team is doing. That's where my frustration comes in, because now it is crucial game time to show, Did you hire the right people? Do you have the right young pieces? What are you going to do from here? How are you scouting? How are you breaking things down? And can you be smarter, more cunning, and more swift than the other people out there that are going after the same guys?
Yeah, I mean, as a Sixers fan, I mean, certainly lived that, in, kind of lived that on steroids with the process, right? It was like trade everybody, acquire draft picks, acquire more draft picks, make a little progress, blow that up, make a little more progress. And then the Sixers didn't really flip the switch until, they landed Embiid and Simmons. Now it was like, okay, now we're going to shift gears into win now mode. So I think, a lot of it with, when a team does that, like the Raptors, like the Sixers did at the time, they had buy-in from ownership and everything. It's frustrating as a fan, and a lot of it has, how far you see that process through before they flip the switch and now get more into win now mode.
Yeah.
Has to do with patience of the fan base and especially patience of the ownership. The ownership kind of has to be willing to suffer the growing pains of that. And, there are things like, media rights is going to come in, into that. If there's, you got to be able to sell your local media. You have to be able to sell to your fan base. Can you stomach that for 2 years, 3 years, however long it takes to get back to competitive level? And then in the meantime, are you going to hit the home run in the draft like the Spurs seem to have done with Wembanyama? That accelerates the process. You hit the home run in the draft. Now you can kind of change your thinking a little bit to put the right pieces around that guy to grow your team.
Yeah, I'm just happy that they found a trade partner in the Indiana Pacers that gave them not one but two first-round draft picks in 2024. That gives me a little more, because it's not like, okay, we're going to go after one thing in the draft. Now there's multiple opportunities to go after first-round capital in the 2024 draft. So that's good. It's positive. I'm hopeful. I'm a little stressed about it, but I'm hopeful. And so before we wrap things up with Dave Pasiak here in the first hour of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life, the NCAA logo is obviously up here, and that is our final conversation. The state of college sports in the Division III world, Dave, you don't have to necessarily worry as much about the transfer portal, although there are transfer pieces that go on at all divisions, but it's not this like, you're probably not going to see someone who's been on 4 teams in 4 years in Division III. At the same time, NIL, the money is different, but you're seeing this stuff as a college coach. You are witnessing what's going on. We have seen conferences blow up. We've seen realignment that makes no logistical sense. Teams that have to now travel 2,400 to 2,800 miles just to play a conference game. And, NIL is ruining it is living the day. It is enjoying every bit of it. NIL is at the top of things. The transfer portal is being used as a way that they dance together, where a coach will tell you, which is supposed to be illegal, jump in the portal, we'll give you 20 grand, jump in the portal, we'll give you 100 grand, this, that, and the third. Nobody's stopping anything. Everything is happening. All of the illegals are now legal. The NIL and the transfer portal, the NIL and transfer portal world feels like the border. Everything's open.
It's been a three-headed monster that has really changed the fabric of college athletics. And to your original point, is like what starts at major college Division I has a way of filtering its way down through mid-major, Division II, Division III. So, we're seeing the effects of that at Division III as it's filtered down from major colleges. But the three-headed monster, like you said, it's NIL, the transfer portal, and COVID. Right now, the COVID waiver and that is kind of working itself through college athletics. So that's like kind of a transient state. But the NIL and the portal are here to stay. And for as long as there's been college and professional sports, college sports pundits have always kind of liked to say, well, the pro guys, they play for the name on the back of the jersey. The college guys play for the name on the front. And with NIL and the transfer portal, that has completely flipped. The pro guys, like you'll see now, guys that have the 4 and 5 year contracts, they'll give back salary. You see this in the NFL where guys will give back salary to be able to sign another guy. Or, you look at the NBA where you've seen teams put together like the big threes, and they'll give up a little bit of salary for the team, or restructured contracts so that they can sign a free agent. So like you see a little bit at the pro level where the guys who have the contract security, they're giving up a little bit for the team. And now you're seeing in college where it's like, it's almost a year to year thing where it's like, what's in it for the individual guy, and guys are going in the transfer portal. And colleges are having to re-recruit their own guys every year. And it's really changed the fabric of college athletics to where it's less about recruiting high school kids, developing them, being part of being about program and values and whatnot in the program, and more about what's in it for me now this year in this situation. And if it's not going the way I want it to go, or I can get more NIL money elsewhere, or somebody's promising me something in terms of role or team or NIL, I'm going to go in the portal. It has really, personally, I don't think it's it's changed college athletics. And, some people's perspective is it's good for the players and it's empowered the players. And I get that. But I think it's really changed the fabric of college athletics and taken away kind of what differentiated college athletics and made it special compared to professional athletics. And I think that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and like I said, I was just kind of thinking about it in the moment. It is essentially the open borders of college sports. There is no stopping. There's no parameter. They say there is. There's a window to jump in the portal. There's some things we're working on, but I mean, we saw this coming. When California said, "Hey, we're going to do this, and if the rest of the country doesn't do it, we get an unfair advantage. Cool for us." And then the NCAA told 50 states, "Guess what? You guys have to do this." And the states were still working through it. I think at the time, 7 states had approved some type of legislation. The rest of the states were trying to figure it out, and they were like, "No, you're all doing it." And then I was like, "Wait a minute, what about states' rights? How can the NCAA trump states' rights? How can they go to a state government and say you have to do this with all the schools within your state?" None of this has made sense the whole time. I feel like somebody should have been brought in for some type of questioning. It seems like a lot of people did things without maybe the legislation to do them, the permission to do them, the right to do them, and none of it really makes sense, Dave. I do agree that student athletes should have something because the people in the NCAA have been making millions and billions off of these players' names for many, many years. I just feel like there has to be some type of parameter because, like you said, pro play for the name on the back of the jersey, college play for the name on the front, but you don't play for the name on the front of your jersey, especially when you're in 3 schools in 4 years. So it's really just become many, many questions. And when they look at the grand scheme of things, a college player will say, well, why do I have to honor the school I'm at, and why do I have to have a responsibility and a connection to my word with them when my coach left, when my school is leaving to another conference? They're seeing on a grand scale that nobody's word means anything in collegiate athletics anymore. It's really come down to whatever is the best avenue for power and money, we're going to take it. We might commit to a place as an institution and change conferences the next year, and they're willing to pay the money to get out of it. So it just seems like until somebody on a grand scale starts to show that your word is supposed to have value, I don't think it's going to get any better.
Yeah, I just think, major college athletics, I just think the horse is out of the barn. I don't think it's not going to go back to the way it was. It's just not. No. I think between the portal and the NIL money and stuff that was blatant cheating for as long as there's been college athletics is not only legal, but it's like encouraged now. And I think, and we've talked about this before, I think we're heading towards a world where, like the other four power conferences have basically swallowed up and devoured the Pac-10, right? So I think you're heading towards a world where the power conferences totally break away from the NCAA, or if they stay so affiliated with the NCAA, it'll be more in name, and they'll be completely self-governing and a different entity than the rest of college athletics. Right now, like the power football and the college football playoff almost operates outside of the NCAA as it is.
Yeah.
The NCAA's one big chip that they still have is March Madness in tournament contract. If now it's the Power Four really. If those four conferences totally break away and take March Madness with it, then I think the NCAA will be really, a completely different organization from what we have now. It'll get back to regulating small college athletics, non-power, non-revenue generating athletics, and it'll have profound impact, because right now, we get the crumbs at Division III from a lot of the NCAA money, but it still allows the NCAA to put on championship events and give a great experience to like the Division III and Division II athletes. If the NCAA loses that, it's really, that will ripple all the way through college athletics. But unfortunately, I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, and I said 6 years ago, this is year 6, I said 5 to 10 years from now, this was my statement 6 years ago, the NCAA will not exist the way that we know it, if it exists at all. That was said by me around 6 years ago, and I said 5 to 10 years, and here we are in that 6th year. The NCAA has tried to rewrite its constitution, find new leadership. There's NIL, transfer portal, realignment. Nothing makes sense anymore. That prediction was seemingly correct, and we're on the road of having maybe 3 levels of Division I at this point. So we'll see, Dave. You and I are always tackling the big stuff. I will say this, Dave. There are many people that give us many things to talk about. Some of it fortunate, some of it unfortunate. The NCAA's got to get it together, but your Buffalo Bills hopefully will get it together this weekend at home against the Chiefs. As always, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. You and I will be talking very soon, and I do hope you're having a wonderful new year and that you feel better moving forward.
Yeah, great to talk to you again, Dan, and go Bills.
Talk to you soon. Take care. That coming from Dave Pasiak one more time here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We appreciate having Dave on as always, and hope for the best with the Buffalo Bills for him. And, of course, I know people on both sides of the coin. I have close friends that are Chiefs fans, close friends that are Bills fans. As an impartial broadcaster, I will be telling you who I think is going to win the game on Sunday during our pregame show. It's the only one that I haven't talked about who I'm predicting to win the game, because I want to save it for the pregame, right? It's a big part of what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to have some fun with it. The Beeville Bills backers president, Cook. I'm very excited to have Cookie's going to be joining me. We're going to be on site, on location, at a very proud Beeville Bills backers bar, that being Pizza Man Pub. We will be on site, on location this Sunday, January 21st at 4:30 p.m., and 2 hours before kickoff, so that we can give you the game, give you our thoughts on, we can give you our thoughts on the game, pregame with you, with all the Buffalo Bills fans coming out. We're going to have some fun at Pizza Man, get some pizza, get some wings, talk about the game from 4:30 to 5:30, and then you got an hour to get yourself in there, get a seat, and pack it into Pizza Man, and then the game will kick off at 6:30. So a lot of great stuff coming up. Speaking of great stuff coming up, PJ and I are going to be talking in hour number 2. PJ was off because he was feeling very under the weather this past week, which is very sad. I don't like when PJ's not feeling well. I don't like when anybody's not feeling well. So PJ is going to be with us in hour number 2 from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We got a bunch of cool things we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be jumping into the coaching changes in college football as well as the NFL. There's been a bunch of things happening. The conversation was when it came to the NFL, was there going to be 6 to 8 teams that would change their coach? Now we're looking at around a third of the NFL looking for a new head coach. So a little interesting here. I think some people make that knee-jerk reaction. So I don't necessarily agree with some of the moves that are being made here, but as we look at the coaching changes in the NFL right now, and we're going to get in more of this with PJ in just a little bit, but we know that the Seattle Seahawks have moved away from Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll was 137, 89, and 1 over 14 seasons. It's crazy. And no matter how many years Pete Carroll was in Seattle, he always felt to me like it wasn't that long ago that he became the head coach of the team. Mike Vrabel, 54 and 45 over 6 seasons, went to the AFC Championship game. He's out. Washington Commanders, Ron Rivera, who was 26, 40, and 1 over 4 seasons. The Atlanta Falcons, Arthur Smith, was 21 and 30 over just 3 seasons with the team. Brandon Staley was fired during the season on December 15th, my grandmother's birthday, so not really happy they picked that day, but really everybody, right, every day of the year's got somebody's birthday on it. 24 and 24 over 3 seasons, so that's with the Chargers. The Carolina Panthers fired Frank Reich on November 27th. 1 and 10 in the season. They didn't even let him finish his first season with the team. Las Vegas Raiders fired Josh McDaniels, a guy that was once coveted by the Colts, the Jaguars, bunch of teams. Allegedly, he was fired on November 1st. He was 9 and 16 over 2 seasons. So that's where we're at. And then the New England Patriots parted ways with Bill Belichick, and Mayo was hired on January 12th. So that's one that's already been hired here. We know the Cleveland Browns are looking for an offensive coordinator. The New Orleans Saints are looking for an OC. The Giants are looking for a DC. The Bears are looking for an OC. The Jaguars are looking for a DC. The Commanders are looking for a DC. The Steelers are looking for an offensive coordinator. The Bills are looking for an offensive coordinator. The Vegas Raiders are looking for an offensive coordinator. And the Dallas Cowboys made the decision to keep Mike McCarthy as their head coach. And that's just talking about the NFL, not even on the college side of things. So a lot of change going on in the NFL amidst the playoffs. Other teams are figuring stuff out, and then some of those teams in the playoffs, like the Buffalo Bills, already know that after the season, which they hope ends in the championship game, the NFL championship, the Super Bowl, and so once that comes to be, hopefully for Buffalo Bills fans, I know a lot of people are excited about what can happen this season, one game at a time, then they have to look at what they're going to do with their offensive coordinator position. So a lot of things coming up here, a lot of great conversation to be had with Papa Joe. Always happy to have PJ on the broadcast, and we will be back right after this on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life, with Papa Joe to carry us through hour number 2 as we talk on coaching changes in college and the NFL, as well as the Jacksonville Jaguars moving forward and the NFL playoffs coming up this weekend in the divisional round with 4 games, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the Whole Frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating at 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and always online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, order anywhere, anytime at maandpaspopcorn.com. Stop in to get a tin at Ma and Pa's on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York to get your half-price refills for the rest of your life. Come to Ma and Pa's for your holiday gift giving for family, friends, employees, and clients. And remember, for fundraising and events, to call 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have at any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there. And of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100. And also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout Central and Upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway, PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and
and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox. And welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, hanging out with you where sports truly meets that thing called life. Appreciate you being here every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and can't thank you enough for being a part of the show with us on all of our social media. It is absolutely cold in central and upstate New York, and I hope you're all staying safe. I hope that you are all staying warm in this beautiful post-Christmas couple weeks here on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, X at Call DT, and Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. Papa Joe joining me here on the broadcast. You are watching and listening on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both / Wake Up Call DT, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. Always happy to have PJ on the line with us. He was off last week because he was feeling under the weather, so we're happy to have him back here on the show today as we have the opportunity to have a conversation on a bunch of different topics. So with that being said, let's bring in the man of the hour, Mr. Papa Joe. PJ, how are we doing this morning?
Hey Daniel, better than it was last week. I was down and out, man. I was a mess, and couldn't breathe, couldn't move. You know, when you get older, something like that hits you, you just can't function. So MT gave me the old COVID test, and I tested okay for that. So just let it run its course. Yesterday was the first day I've been out since I was ill. We had lunch with friends at Palm Coast, and it was good to get out. But it's cold. I mean, the last couple of nights we've got down into the 30s, and for us, that's pretty cold. So let's hope things will be warming up today, be in the mid-60s. But I know you guys are going through hell up there, so talk about staying warm. You got to stay warm.
Yeah, no, very cold out here in central and upstate New York, and so definitely appreciate everybody down in Florida, in my second home of the great state of Florida, and my first home being the state of New York, and it is a state of cold, very cold, frigid temperatures. And we talk about cold and frigid. Some of these NFL teams, PJ, have been cold and frigid toward their head coaches. We know that many teams have gotten rid of their head coaches. Only the New England Patriots, who seem to have a succession plan that was already in place, have made the change to their next coach. They've already figured out who it's going to be. Mayo taking over for Bill Belichick in New England. But beyond that, there's a bunch of question marks. And I'm going to go down the line here. I did it before the break here, but I'm going to let everybody know once again, with the current open jobs in the NFL for head coach vacancies are the Seattle Seahawks, who parted ways with Pete Carroll. We have the Tennessee Titans, who parted ways with Mike Vrabel, and from there you have the Commanders, who parted ways with Ron Rivera. During the season, and I also want to hit the Atlanta Falcons. That happened right at the end of the season with Arthur Smith, and then the Chargers, as well as the Panthers and the Raiders, got rid of their coaches during the season, which I know PJ is never a fan of. So we have, as of right now, the current vacancies at head coach in the NFL of the 32 franchises. There are openings with the Seahawks, Titans, Commanders, Falcons, Chargers, Panthers, Raiders, which leaves us with 7. It was 8 with the Patriots, but it is now 7. What are your thoughts on the current head coaching vacancies of the 7 teams that I just brought up?
Well, the NFL stands for not for long, and if you don't win, you're just not going to keep your job. that goes for a player as well as a coach or a line coach. So sometimes these owners, they get a little impatient. You know, these guys, look, these guys make a lot of money. They may cry uncle all the time, but these guys make a lot of money with their sales and with their cable contracts and their TV contracts. So, like I stated several times in this concept, there's no reason to get rid of a coach in the middle of the year. What the hell good is it going to do? Unless you have someone already on staff that's a real dynamo that's going to take over and access the team, what good is it? I mean, so I don't know. I looked at the Belichick situation carefully. That one took me by surprise, almost like Nick Saban did. Jared Mayo was a good player, and for the Patriots especially. But I think Mr. Kraft, I think he overlooked something. I think he overlooked probably one of the best players that's ever played for him. That's Mike Vrabel. Him being released by Tennessee for whatever reason, he had a winning record there. Don't know why. He's a tough-nosed guy, hard defensive guy. I thought he would have been a natural for that.
Yeah.
But Mayo certainly is a very competent young man. I just didn't. I just thought Mr. Kraft probably was a little bit too quick on that. I think if he had sat down and talked with Vrabel, maybe he did. I don't know. But I think maybe he would probably fit his plans a little bit more than Jared Mayo. But notwithstanding, there's a whole bunch of jobs open, and there's a lot of competent people out there that want a job. When you get a head coaching job, you're in the $4 or $5 million range. So let's see what happens after Coach Belichick.
Yeah, and like you said, the Mike Vrabel thing, a reaction from the Tennessee Titans. I said the Titans' giant thank you. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars should send the Tennessee Titans a big thank you card on from Derrick Henry. I think the Jacksonville Jaguars should send, and the rest of the AFC South should send the Tennessee Titans a box of chocolates. I really do. Because it's just bad decision-making on the Tennessee Titans' part. Vrabel, I thought, would have made perfect sense, right? He gets let go from the Titans. There was no word on the Patriots and what they were going to do yet. Then they part ways with Bill Belichick, and there's a few days after that, and you're thinking, okay, they're going to bring in Mike Vrabel. This is going to be great. And then they didn't. And so I think, Jared Mayo, like you said, I'm not looking at Jared Mayo as somebody where I'm like, oh, man, that stinks type of thing. Give the guy an opportunity, give him some time. It's just a little shocking that they didn't go with Mike Vrabel because they were kind of given this perfect situation. This is one of those things 3 to 4 years down the road. Do you look back at this moment and say that the Patriots made the right decision, or do you think that they missed the boat when they could have gotten Vrabel to come back to the Patriots after he had played there for Belichick and been a Super Bowl champion? So, we'll see when it comes to the Titans. Pete Carroll with the Seattle Seahawks, PJ, he's been there 14 years, last couple of years without Russ the Bus Wilson. What are your thoughts on the Pete Carroll situation in Seattle? It almost seemed like him with Seattle was like Jim Harbaugh with the Michigan Wolverines. It didn't really seem like it was ever going to end. It seemed like maybe there were times where things weren't copacetic and maybe there were some issues back and forth, but they always kind of figured it out. It's weird to see a world without Pete Carroll as the Seattle Seahawks coach, especially when he was there for almost a decade and a half. What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, he's certainly an institution in NFL football coaching. Perfect guy for any kind of job, really. He's a good recruiter. He's a rah-rah guy. He loves to be around his players. He's really energetic, and the guy, I've never seen him down. I mean, maybe he'll say a bad statement every once in a while, but man, he is upbeat most of the time, and I don't know why Seattle would want to get rid of that. I mean, they made a decision to get rid of Russ Wilson, which maybe was the best deal, considering he's not doing so good. Maybe they saw something, but I think that Pete Carroll could get a job anywhere if he wanted it. I know he's in his early 70s, I think, too. So he's the kind of coach that you want around a guy. He's a player's coach. He loves his players. He loves the game of football. He loves X's and O's. He loves the draft. He's just an upbeat guy. So someone's going to be real happy when they hire him.
Yeah, and that's, so I mean, Pete Carroll, that was an interesting situation. Maybe one that wasn't as interesting as far as the move that was made. The Washington Commanders making the decision to part ways with Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera's record with the team wasn't great. It was really strange that the Carolina Panthers let him go because at the time he was coach of the year, could have been coach of the year 2 years in a row, and the Carolina Panthers decided to part ways with him, part ways with Cam Newton. And since they've done those things, they've had two head coaches in Matt Rule, who didn't last long at all, and Frank Reich, who didn't last long, and they've had multiple quarterbacks. So since Carolina let go of Ron Rivera and Cam Newton, they have been in a just whirlwind of not great. And now the Washington Commanders have let go of Ron Rivera, who had a different tenure with Washington. He ends there 26-40-1 over 4 seasons. Washington has the number 2 overall pick, and they need a head coach, PJ. What's the state of the Washington Commanders?
Oh, they're a mess. It's too bad, too. Ron Rivera's, again, one of the good guys. Played the game for many years. Again, he's a player's coach. Again, he didn't win enough, that's for sure. Unfortunately, he made some bad decisions at Carolina, and he's made some really ultra bad decisions with Washington. They're going to need whoever comes in is going to need a real top flight quarterback and someone that they can build a team on. I don't know who that's going to be. There's 3 or 4 guys out there that could be a franchise quarterback that look to be drafted, but I'm not sure that the current list of quarterbacks they have right now are going to make it. So Washington's got a lot on their plate to figure out.
Yeah, Washington definitely. I got some Washington fans that are close friends, and they one of them for certain was ready to see Ron Rivera go. I've never seen him more excited about the opportunity of moving on from a head coach. By the way, I want to say a very happy day and a happy new year once again to my big brother Joey, but I can only do it in this way. So I wanted to send him some love here as he sent that out here in our feed. PJ, the Atlanta Falcons head away from Arthur Smith. They move on from him after a game where he decided to walk across the field, not shake hands with the other head coach, and drop F-bombs, point his finger in his face, and essentially, from what I could make out of it, said the F word at least once and said F you to the other coach. He was 21-30 in 3 seasons and fired the day after he was dropping F-bombs on television. What are your thoughts?
I guess he made a bad decision there too. He was an okay coach. I mean, nothing serious. Again, he doesn't have a quarterback. You can't win in this league without a top-play quarterback. He let his emotions get away from him. Of course, famous Jameis is such an idiot that he goes and does things like this and puts everything in turmoil, and he's behind it all. So if New Orleans doesn't dump his ass, I don't know why they wouldn't dump his ass now. So, but Atlanta's got some serious problems too. Bring in a top flight coach. Belichick, I understand, was interviewed for the job, and he would be. I'm not sure I like him for that. Atlanta's probably going to come up with some hotshot offensive coordinator and maybe try to work within their system and get their offense to go. But they're a real mess.
Yeah, and they really are. The Atlanta Falcons. Here's the thing. The Atlanta Falcons, not so much a mess on offense. They have talent on offense. They definitely have talent on offense. A lot of young talent on offense. They have a lot of misused talent on offense. They haven't used, in my opinion, they have not used Kyle Pitts correctly really ever since he came into the NFL, coming from the Florida Go. There it is. So, Kyle Pitts, they have not used him correctly. At Tyler Algier, I don't think they've used him correctly in his second season with the team. They have a phenom potential in Bijan Robinson at running back, and they have Drake London, and they have a young quarterback at Desmond Ridder. So, are they going to stick with Desmond Ridder? Doesn't feel like that is going to be the long-term solution for the offense, quarterback-wise, for the Atlanta Falcons. But they have all of this young talent, and so you would imagine that a coach can come in and have some fun with that and figure out who their quarterback's going to be. But the problem with Atlanta is they haven't played defense in about 4 or 5 years. So they have to – go ahead. What were you going to say?
To go back to the Kyle Pitts thing, if you look around the NFL, and most of us look at everything that's going on, most of the teams incorporate a big, strong tight end into their offense. I mean, it's everywhere, from Kelso all the way down. So why would you not use someone who's as big and as fast as Kyle Pitts and just waste him for a couple of years? I don't get it. I mean, Kyle Pitts is the kind of receiver that can catch 100 balls and 1,200 yards every single year. He's just a clone of the regular good old-fashioned strong tight ends that block well and run well and catch well. So they've you're right. They've misused him incorrectly. That's for sure. So go ahead.
Yeah. So we're looking at that with the Falcons, the Chargers. Brandon Staley, they fired him when I was down in Florida in early December. Decided to let him go after a game that they played in. I'm trying to think of what. I think it might have been Thursday Night Football, but they ended up letting him. Oh no, it was. Let me think here. It was early December that they did this, and I'm trying to think of the exact date. It was what I had said before, December 15th. So yeah, okay. And so when they fired him, when they decided to let him go, Brandon Staley. Now they have an opening with the Chargers. If you become the head coach of the Chargers, here's the thing, though. You have Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, but for how much longer? They're both good, but neither one of them can stay healthy together for an entire season. Austin Eckler is getting older, but you have Herbert. So what are your thoughts on the Chargers opening?
That's a very appealing job right there. And anytime you've got a franchise quarterback like Herbert and the size that he brings and the downhill spiral and the rifle that he's got, that's a very, very attractive job. And I think that a lot of, even Belichick, some of the older guys, even Carroll, some of the guys that are looking for a job maybe would really like that job. Of course, you'd have to look at the rest of the roster to see if it's viable, but anytime you get a big, strong-arm guy like Herbert, I'd want to coach that.
Yeah, so, I mean, that seems to be, when you look at all the quarterbacks, right, you look at Seattle, they have Geno Smith and Drew Lock. You look at the quarterback situation with the Tennessee Titans, Will Levis, probably. You look at the Washington Commanders, question mark, is it going to be Sam Howell? You look at the Atlanta Falcons, is it going to be Desmond Ridder? But you know with the Chargers, it's going to be Justin Herbert, so that's a big-time one right there. The Carolina Panthers, I brought this up, right? They have had 2 coaches in the last 2 years, and they have fired these coaches during, amidst a season, just letting people go. They let Matt Rule go. They let Frank Reich go. Frank Reich was 1-10 in his kind of a season, didn't even have a full season. He was fired on November 27th with Carolina. Carolina, PJ, they've tried to figure out their quarterback. They've had 4 or 5 guys come in. They've tried to figure out their coach. They're now going to be on to their 3rd in the last 3 years. 3 coaches in 3 years. Don't know who their starting quarterback is. Traded away Christian McCaffrey. What's going on with the Carolina Panthers?
Well, they're a mess number 3. They are really a mess. I am really surprised that Bryce Young did not turn out better than he did. I don't know what kind of offensive scheme they were working down there, but, as you heard me say it 100 times, I'm not in favor of a little bitty guy playing quarterback. I just don't see it. You need a big, tall, strong guy that can look over everyone and throw it on the field. It'd be difficult for him to do that. In Alabama, the team was so good and their players were so good that they sort of gelled and he knew what he was doing. So he rolled out of the pocket and threw the ball. That's all right. I guess you're the NFL too, but they want pocket guys, not guys that scoot around, I don't know what they're going to do with him. I know that the owner there is kicking himself in the butt for not taking C.J. Stroud. That's for sure. And I'll get to him later because he's one of my favorite players now, even though I bad bounced coming from Ohio State. But Bryce Young is a big surprise, a big disappointment. So I don't know. He can't grow 2 or 3 inches over the winter, so I'm not sure what's going to happen to him.
Yeah, and then you go from there and you say, okay, so the Carolina Panthers, and let me touch on this for a second here. The Carolina Panthers came into the NFL in 1995 with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're not even 30 years old as a franchise, but the Carolina Panthers almost look like an expansion team right now. They do not have any clear defensive leader, in my opinion, that is like the powerhouse. They do not have a clear quarterback where you're like, yeah, I feel great about it on offense. They do not have a clear running back. They do not have a clear wide receiver. They do not have a clear who is their head coach going to be. The Carolina Panthers in this moment look as if they just joined the NFL and are essentially, maybe it would behoove them to have another expansion draft, to just like get rid of everybody and put together a 53-man roster from the other 31 teams that are out there. The Carolina Panthers have just fallen, and I'm not going to sit here and say that the Jacksonville Jaguars haven't underperformed, but the Jacksonville Jaguars have been competitive. The Jacksonville Jaguars have had moments of these last 3 seasons where there's been good to be had. And there's expectations with the Carolina Panthers now, or with the Jacksonville Jaguars now. The Carolina Panthers, there really isn't expectations, and if there are, they're not meeting them. The Carolina Panthers, when you change your coach 3 times in 3 years, when you hire Frank Reich, which I questioned that hire when it happened, and nothing against Frank Reich, I was just kind of like, oh, this is kind of premature. I mean, is this where we're going? But when they hired Frank Reich, and you don't even let him have 12 games of a 17-game season, you are admitting to your fan base that you hired the wrong guy. When you do that, the questions come up with Carolina. Why is, maybe the person that owns the team should sell the team. Maybe the general manager shouldn't be the general manager. Maybe other things need to change because you brought in Bryce Young and it hasn't been, it didn't work in the first season. Granted, he's a rookie quarterback. You got to give those guys time. But Bryce Young, in numerous times this season, did something that I haven't seen a lot of other quarterbacks do in their first season in the NFL, which is look like he had no idea where he was. He looked like he was completely like, what is happening? I'm not ready for this. And maybe he'll get better. I hope he gets better. But I told you going into this draft of 2023 that I was not sold on a single quarterback. There was nobody going into the 2023 NFL draft where I was like, yeah, okay, I feel great about this guy. This should be the guy that somebody picks number 1 overall. I didn't feel that way about Bryce Young. I said they're probably going to take Bryce Young number 1 overall, but I didn't agree with the pick. It's not something that I felt great about. Now, C.J. Stroud stepped it up, and we give him credit where credit is due. There's been many quarterbacks throughout the years that have stepped up that going into the draft, people weren't necessarily thinking that's going to be the guy. How many times do we say that the quarterback drafted 27th or 30th, or in the case of Tom Brady, drafted in the 6th round as a compensatory pick, ends up being arguably the greatest quarterback ever, and he was taken in the 2nd to last round of the draft. So, you can't say, not everybody can sit here, oh yeah, I thought C.J. Stroud was going to be fantastic. I told everybody. No, you didn't. A lot of people didn't. And obviously the Carolina Panthers didn't see that. So, and C.J. Stroud is the first Ohio State quarterback in recent history to actually translate to the NFL. There's been other quarterbacks like Cardell Jones that have come in and it hasn't worked out as a consistent starter. Braxton Miller was asked to shift from quarterback to wide receiver. There hasn't been a quarterback from Ohio State in recent history that has had the level of success or anywhere close to what C.J. Stroud is having in his probably offensive rookie of the year season. So Carolina made moves, but what they're essentially saying to their fan base is we're not drafting well and we're not finding the right head coach, which would tell your fan base that your front office staff has to change because now it's on your general manager. Now it's on, your director of football operations. It's on the people above the head coach now, because if you're not drafting correctly and you're firing a coach mid-season in his first season with the team, you're essentially telling your fan base and the world, we don't know what we're doing and we're really not making good decisions. So PJ, is the problem in Carolina above the head coach? Is it up in the luxury box?
Probably the luxury box. I know when these guys buy these franchises, these men with wealth, They didn't get there by not stepping on toes. They're just a vicious, cruel bunch of people that are only money hungry, and they run their businesses like a titan. You know, they're just bossy and overextend themselves. They don't trust anyone. They want to make all the decisions. They want to do that. They want to do this. Oh, this guy bought this club. He wants to make all the decisions, and every one of them he's made is wrong. Now, whether he's putting the emphasis to the general manager or the football operations person, I don't know. I would think that probably the final vote would come from the owner. I don't even know his name, but he hasn't impressed me very often. So if I was a general manager of Carolina and or the football operations person, I think I'd be looking for something else.
Oh, yeah, and that's the issue that we have here right now is where are we going to do, what are we going to do from here? Scott Fitterer was the general manager for the Carolina Panthers here recently, and they are searching for a general manager now because, I think those people in that luxury box saw if we're firing a coach mid-season and we're going through quarterbacks like underwear, we're going through coaches even worse than that, then it is a general manager problem. It's a problem of managing the team with the coaches and with the personnel. And so the Panthers are looking for a new general manager, which I think is fitting. I don't wish anybody to lose their job. I'm not happy when anybody loses their job. I think from a pure schematic standpoint of your plan for the future and the present, that this was more than a head coaching problem. And now the Carolina Panthers are showing that in their search for a general manager. The last team to talk about that has a head coaching vacancy as of right now are the Raiders. That's right, baby. So you hit it with the Raiders. They had Antonio Pierce who came in, and he did a pretty good job as an interim guy. It seems like there's some liking of him there, but the Las Vegas Raiders, they have an opening because Josh McDaniels, who was once coveted, remember that time when he accepted the job with the Indianapolis Colts and then he never showed up and he went back to the Patriots because Bill Belichick, I need you to be my OC. And all right, dude, and then I'm staying. Remember that time when he went against what he said he was going to do and then the Jaguars wanted him? He ends up going to the Vegas Raiders, and Josh McDaniels does not have himself a good tenure there, who once was a coveted head coach, was 9-16 over 2 seasons with the Raiders. He was fired on November 1st. They didn't let him finish a full second season. Where do the Raiders go? Do they say, hey, let's go with Antonio Pierce. We like what he did. Let's make this happen. I mean, you look at Vegas being a place for the Super Bowl, Vegas just being a hub of where teams are coming. They have an NFL team now. They have an NHL team. They're going to be having an MLB team. It seems like Las Vegas is the hottest place for professional teams to go. So this should be a hot job, right? But what are your thoughts on it, PJ? Where do the Raiders go from here?
That's a good question. I think that they'll have to look long and hard at what the whole ball of wax is from the top down, from the coaches all the way down to the sub-coaches and the team members and everyone, trainers and everyone. This wasn't a good organization. McDaniels didn't flourish at all. I don't know why he's striking out the way he is. He's got a great offensive mind. Antonio Pierce is a good rah-rah guy. I'm sure he's loves the players love him, that kind of stuff, But is he smart enough to take the reins forward, going forward? In my opinion, this is just my opinion. In my opinion, Las Vegas has to make a splash here for a coach, whether it be one of those high-flying offensive quarters that we talk about all the time. Maybe not Mr. Pierce, I'm sorry, but I think that they really need to make a splash here and bring in something that could re-energize things.
Yeah, the Raiders, will see what they do with this. We know that they're looking for a general manager, and they had requested to have some people come in. The NFL is very gracious and allowing us the lists of who have been requested for interviews so far. But we have 7 vacancies in the NFL right now of 32 franchises, 8 open jobs, but the Patriots job was open for a very short time before Jared Mayo was given that opportunity to become the head coach of the team. The only team in America in the NFL, Papa Joe, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, the only team in America in the NFL that ever has to have a press conference about why they're keeping their coach seems to be the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know if there's any other franchise where they write stories about retaining a coach that at the end of the season, you see all these. I mean, I don't see stories where they say the Jaguars are keeping Doug Peterson. I don't see stories where they're like, hey, I think we're going to hold on to Sean McDermott here in Buffalo. But Dallas, there's literally stories written that we're going to keep our head coach that we never said we were going to get rid of. So we're just letting you know that Mike McCarthy is going to be the coach. You've seen that in the past with the Dallas Cowboys. They have to kind of tell you every year, like, what are we doing? And it just seems interesting because a guy like Pete Carroll, if Seattle is ever thinking about, are we keeping him or are we not keeping him over 14 years, I don't feel like that's a typical, like, international media, we're keeping Pete Carroll. But the Mike McCarthy thing comes up with the Dallas Cowboys. Some people are like, oh, maybe they should go for Bill Belichick. What do you think about the Cowboys keeping Mike McCarthy?
Well, we have to always talk about Jerry Jones. He's such an egotist that his ego gets in the way all the time when he's trying to make decisions. To his credit, he's leaving Mike McCarthy alone and letting him coach. Jason Garrett was a good coach for Dallas. He got a winning record. Come on. And McCarthy's got a winning record. They don't win the big ones. Well, what do? You look at your team. You don't look at the coach. What Mike McCarthy is a proven Super Bowl winner, period. He's a good offensive mind. Every time you watch the Cowboys, I think you're waiting for them to self-explode. And that's what happens with Dak Prescott. And he looked lost the other night. I mean, he threw for 400 and something yards, but he just looked lost. Defense had no clue what was happening. Of course, injuries always take part in every football team, but you can't blame injuries all the time. I think that Jerry Jones probably did the right thing once in his life, I think, by saying, listen, we're not talking about our head coach anymore. Leave the man alone. He's coaching next year. Let's go out and find some more players. That's what he said, and I applaud that. And I think he should be left alone. McCarthy is a true football man. He's a brilliant, strategic person, and he just needs to be left alone. If, for some reason, his players that he put in positions to make plays are not doing it, then he's got to jettison them and bring someone else in. We'll see where this goes.
Yeah, we'll definitely see what decisions are going to be made here as we step forward, but we know that these jobs are currently vacant, not the Cowboys and not the Patriots. Here's the big question about Bill Belichick. 2 questions for you, PJ. How long do you think Bill Belichick will keep coaching? And the second question that I have for you is, where makes sense for Bill Belichick? I don't want to load the question with some of the thoughts that I have, so I won't. He's 71 years old. How much longer do you think we will see Bill Belichick as a head coach in the NFL? And of the Seattle, Tennessee, Washington, Atlanta, Los Angeles Chargers, Carolina, and Vegas, where do you think he would go?
That's a good question. Belichick was in total control at New England. He was the general manager, assistant general manager, coach, whatever he was. He led the draft. Nothing got by him. No one made decisions without going to Coach Belichick. And I think that if he goes to a similar situation, he would probably like it. But I don't think these teams out here are willing to give total control to someone like Belichick, even though he's a proven winner. Coach Belichick proved, and other coaches proved, that you have to have a quarterback to play this game. He didn't get Mac Jones up and ready to go when he first came in town. It didn't work for him, and you see what happens. I mean, after 2 years, the Patriots floundered. So I don't think he'd want any of those jobs that we just talked about. Least of all, Dallas, if it ever came up. I mean, he and Jones would be headbutting all the time. He probably would like something with Seattle if he could find himself a quarterback. No offense, Geno Smith, but you're not long term up there. Las Vegas, maybe, Garoppolo.
Yeah.
He knows him, so it's a tough situation for him, and I think he's being very, very cautious. Even if he gets 5 interviews and doesn't take a job, it doesn't mean that he wasn't out there. So if that's the case, then he wanted something more than what the teams were willing to give.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, I would imagine Bill Belichick maybe just my thoughts in the moment. Maybe he's telling a team, I want to be the head coach and I want to be the GM. I want to be the head coach. I mean, if he goes to Carolina, he could be everything. He could be the head coach. He could be the GM. He could be the groundskeeper. He could be the hot dog maker. Whatever he wants to do in Carolina is probably open to him. But if I'm Bill Belichick, I'm looking at the Chargers because of Justin Herbert. Outside of that, maybe I'm a little enticed by the Titans, but probably not going to go there after his protege was already there and they let him go. So the places that would make the most sense to me for Bill Belichick, the Chargers. The only reason why the Falcons don't make sense to me is unless he has a quarterback where he's already talked to somebody and been like, hey, I'm going to go to Atlanta, I'm going to take this job, and then I'm going to go get you, and we're going to put you on this team. Unless that's the case. You also have to look at draft, right? I don't think we talk about this enough when there's a head coaching search, is draft order. If I'm a head coach, if I'm Bill Belichick, and I have the history that I've had, and I still think he's got a bug up his butt about what Tom Brady did in Tampa, and I think he wants to prove that he could do it without Tom. So when you look, because Tom left and did something great, and so now I think Bill, in his leaving, wants to show that he can do something great outside of Tom Brady, outside of the New England Patriots. So when you look at draft order, PJ, this, I think, is a big part of what a coach, I shouldn't say, well, I mean, to some coaches may be bigger than others, but this should be a part of it. This should be a conversation that somebody's having when they're going to a team and they're talking to these prospective teams here on if they're going to take the job. If I'm Bill Belichick and I'm looking at the draft, if I go to Washington, I have the number 2 pick. If I go to the Chargers, I have the number 5 pick, and I already have Justin Herbert. If I go to Tennessee, I have the number 7 pick. If I go to Atlanta, I have the number 8 pick. Nobody else is in the top 10 of the teams that we're talking about. So I think the most enticing places, in my opinion, for Bill Belichick, and 71 years old and leaving New England now where he's been forever and a day, the places that would make the most sense to him, in my opinion, I would think are the Chargers, because you have Justin Herbert and you have the number 5 overall pick. You got a defense that can do some good things. You got some talent on offense, but you're going to have to eventually find yourself a running back and some receivers. And then if I go to Atlanta, I got all these young offensive players that I mentioned, and if I don't want to keep Desmond Ridder as my quarterback, I can get somebody at number 8 overall. So I think when we're looking at the fact that a head coach really has to look at the quarterback situation and, in my opinion, look at the draft capital, I think the Chargers make sense because you have Herbert and the number 5 overall, and I think Atlanta makes sense because you can get a quarterback at number 8.
I like that analogy, and specifically about Herbert. That would be a pleasurable job for Coach, and of course he'd be warm 12 months a year too. We'd have to worry about freezing up there in New England. Tennessee has got Will Levis. They're going to groom him to take over for Andy Hill. Whoever's going to come in is going to take that. Atlanta does have problems, but as we speak, I think that you're right about the Chargers. Hebert would love to pick the coach's brain and see what more he can do with his big arm. It's a nice situation over there, so maybe that's the one he'd look at the most.
Yeah, I feel like if I'm Bill Belichick and I want to prove I can win without Brady, Justin Herbert would be your best bet of all of the 7 teams I'm looking at. And the second option would be Atlanta, because you can go and get a quarterback at number 8, prove that you know how to draft, make a good decision there, and then use Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Tyler Algier, and Bijan Robinson with that new quarterback to have a high-powered offense. Could be a huge thing for them. Here with Papa Joe on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. We're going to take a quick step aside. When we come back, we're going to shift gears. You thought that all of that talk we just had about coaches was done? No. In the college football world, coaches have jumped into the transfer portal. There's about 5 billion changes that I've seen here. There's 130 plus Division 1A FBS coaches, yet I'm looking at this list going, did like a third of these change their coach? The list goes on and on and on and on. I'm going to give you the list after this break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And when we come back, after I give you the list, and Papa Joe goes, whoa, take a breath, brother, then we're going to talk about the ones that really stick out to PJ and what we're going to see moving forward in college football, including if Jim Harbaugh is going to stay in Michigan. We've heard a lot of different things. There's a lot of alleged information out there. What do we think about Jim Harbaugh and his future with Washington, or with Michigan? And do we think that immunity being asked for in a contract is even legal? We'll discuss that after this on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you. Looking for your next ride? Look no further than Great Lakes Honda City, located on 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Serving our community for decades, their new and pre-owned vast array of vehicles are available to you Monday through Saturday on site. To search from home, shop at GreatLakesHondaCity.com. Call 315-365-5576 to set up an appointment. That's 315-365-5576 for Great Lakes Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard in Liverpool, New York. Great cars, great people, Great Lakes.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also, I think we recognized that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level, is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career, it's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, hanging out with you where sports truly meets that thing called life, here with Papa Joe on a Thursday. PJ is with us in hour 2 of Thursdays
here with us from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And I gave you the rundown of the coaches in the NFL that have been let go and the vacancies that still exist. Well, if you thought that was a list, then ladies and gentlemen, you don't know no list. I'm going to tell you another list. I don't think you're ready for it though. Here we go. This is the list of college football coaches that have been let go or have left for another job. And this is the situation that we're in right now, okay? So I got the big screen up for this in the studio. I'm just going to run down this list, and I know PJ will probably react as we go to the fact that there's 1.5 billion people on this list. So the Buffalo Bulls let go of Maurice Linguist. They still have not filled that job. Outside of that, another job that hasn't been filled, Brent Brennan is gone. San Jose State is still looking for a new head coach. So we have that. So those are San Jose State and the Buffalo Bulls do not have a new head coach. Out in South Alabama, Kane Womack coming in, Major Applewhite, who was promoted from offensive coordinator. He was also promoted to be the Houston Cougars head coach a few years back in my coverage of Houston. When Tom Herman left for Texas, Major Applewhite was promoted from offensive coordinator to head coach for the Houston Cougars. So this is another time that this has happened. Brent Brennan, pardon me, if I had said he was let go from San Jose State, he actually left from San Jose State to take the job at Arizona. Jed Fish out at Arizona. Brent Brennan in from San Jose State is now the Arizona head coach. You got to follow the bouncing ball with this. And then Kalen DeBoer, he leaves Washington, and Jed Fish from Arizona takes over Washington. So this is the musical chairs thing that's happened. Kalen DeBoer gets hired for Alabama after Nick Saban retires. Then Jed Fish leaves Arizona for Washington. And then Jed Fish, being out in Arizona, brings Brent Brennan from San Jose State, who now has a coaching vacancy. That's how the bouncing ball works in that case. Looking at Kalen DeBoer, who I mentioned. Then Mike Elko, Jimbo Fisher out at Texas A&M from a while ago. Mike Elko leaving Duke to go back to Texas A&M, where he was the defensive coordinator under Jimbo Fisher. Mel Tucker fired for cause, according to Michigan State. They hired Jonathan Smith from Oregon State. Zach Arnett, who was the defensive coordinator of the Syracuse Orange for about 15 minutes, never really did anything here as he was announced and then took a job somewhere else. He is out with Mississippi, and Jeff Lebby, Mississippi State, the Bulldogs, he's out with that team. Jeff Lebby is in for Mississippi State. So this, and we're just getting started with this list. So I want to try and run through it really quick here. Jeff Lebby in for Oklahoma offensive coordinator, now the head coach of Mississippi State. Pat Fitzgerald, who was fired for cause from Northwestern. David Braun, Northwestern interim head coach, is there. Fran Brown, obviously, Dino Babers let go here in Syracuse. Fran Brown coming from Georgia as their defensive backs coach. Jonathan Smith, the Oregon Beavers, leaving there, or Oregon State Beavers, I should say. Trent Bray, Oregon State defensive coordinator, becomes the head coach. Tom Allen being let go from Indiana. Kurt Signetti from James Madison taking over the job there. Mike Elko out at Duke. Manny Diaz takes the job at Duke. Remember when Manny Diaz took the job at Temple? And 2 weeks later, he was back in Miami as their head coach. Remember when that happened? I think they kept the plane warm for him when it landed in Philadelphia, if it even landed. So Manny Diaz, is now at Duke. I feel like that's a not-for-long deal. Just doesn't seem to fit. But we'll see. Brady Hoke retired from San Diego State. Sean Lewis, the former offensive coordinator of Dino Babers in Dino's first season with Syracuse, and was the offensive coordinator most recently for primetime Deion Sanders in Colorado. He's now the head coach of San Diego State. Dana Holgerson fired from Houston right after Houston goes to, so he's in the Big 12 with West Virginia for many years. He leaves the Big 12, goes to the American, coaches Houston. Then Houston goes to the Big 12. He returns to the Big 12, speaking on Dana Holgerson, and is fired in his return to the Big 12. How crazy that is. Willie Fritz takes over, coming out of Tulane, and is now the Houston head coach. Andy Avalos out with Boise State. Spencer Danielson, Boise State interim head coach and defensive coordinator, now there in the role. Dana Dumel was out with the... This is crazy, just how long this list is. I don't even know if I have enough time to go through this, but I'm going to go through a couple more here. These are the coaching changes. So when they talk about the transfer portal and people say the transfer portal is wrong and it's horrible and it's killing athletics, there are problems with the transfer portal, but coaches are in the transfer portal. Look at this. I mean, you talk about players being in the transfer portal. Look at how many coaches are in the transfer portal here in this case. A lot of these coaches not getting fired from their jobs, but essentially deciding to leave for another, which caused these crazy domino effects in collegiate athletics. I mean, you think about Nick Saban's effect on Alabama, which affected Washington, which affected Arizona, which now is affecting San Jose State in just one move because of all the coaches that shifted because of that. UTEP is moving on from their coach. PJ, this list goes on and on and on and on and on. It is like a grocery list when you're making Thanksgiving for 40. So what are your thoughts on this? I'll start with Nick Saban because I don't know if people fully understand, and I didn't before this morning, fully understand the ripple effect of Nick Saban retiring. He leaves Alabama, like I said, and so when he leaves Alabama, Kalen DeBoer, the head coach of the Washington Huskies, gets hired to be the new head coach at Alabama, which opens up Washington, which causes the Arizona head coach to leave for Washington, which opens up Arizona, which causes the San Jose State coach to leave for Arizona, which opens up San Jose State. All of that happened because Nick Saban retired. So what are your thoughts on just that move alone and the ripple effect of Nick Saban on college football?
Well, there's not too many coaches that would have that kind of effect on the world of college football, and certainly this one caught me by surprise too, because he's always saying how much he loves his kids and how he wants to coach, he wants to do this, he wants to do that, and he's always been true to his word. I mean, he's never BS'd anyone. I mean, he tells it like it is, and I really believed him, and something happened to him, maybe health-wise or something like that. Maybe it's the grind. Maybe he doesn't think he can meet Georgia consistently over the next 3 or 4 years. I don't know, but frankly, there's only a couple. The list is ongoing, as you said, and there's no offense to these other men that have taken the positions, but there's really only 2 positions that I thought about talking about. One is, of course, Coach Saban, and the other is Michigan State. The Tucker situation up there with Michigan State was awful. I'm glad he's gone, and I'm glad they got rid of him, and they brought in a first-class guy to take over. Michigan State is going to move forward now. I really think that they can stay with Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State. So anyway, get back to Saban. This is the one that the whole nation was looking at, and everyone's trying to say. I bet there was a lot of money bet on this too. Who's going to be the next coach of Alabama? And I didn't think it was going to be Kalen DeBoer, but he gave his explanation and he gave his reasons why. I mean, this guy is a killer. I mean, I know he was in a smaller division of college football. I don't care if he's in the junior league of some high school. Yeah. I mean, the guy wins. I mean, he wins, period. He's got a way about him. And every time I've seen him on the sideline, I haven't seen him too many times because we don't get to watch Washington that much. But when I see him, he's very, very quiet, and he doesn't jump and scream up and down like a Pete Carroll does. But this guy is, I'm not sure he's going to set Alabama on his end, but if there was a person that maybe take over for a sort of a droll Nick Saban, it would be DeBoer, because he's the same kind of personality, very quiet, but he gets out of his players. I don't know what kind of system he puts in. He wins at every single level, and I think this is a no-brainer. I think it's a great move by Alabama, and it's certainly a great move by Coach DeBoer. And he mentioned it. He said, "Listen, there's only one job that I would take in this whole country, and I got it."
Yeah. And when we look at I mean, I'll stick with this for a second here and then look at the bigger picture. the Alabama Crimson Tide, to think that they would not have Nick Saban, at least for like the next 5 years. But to go off of what we were talking about in hour number one and bridge it here to hour number two of Wake Up Call this morning, the NIL, name, image, and likeness, transfer portal, and college football realignment, as well as nobody having control over anything college football related, it feels like, except for maybe TV companies. A guy like Nick Saban retires after we see Roy Williams retire from North Carolina basketball, Jim Boeheim retire from Syracuse, Coach K retire from Duke, Jay Wright retire from Villanova. We're in a place where I don't find it coincidental, and talking with coaches and talking with people in the industry, I don't find it coincidental. They don't find it coincidental that these absolute high caliber, premier, championship winning, really strong coaches are leaving collegiate athletics during a time where there is no control, during a time where players are not playing for the name on the front of their jersey. They're playing for the name on the back like they're already professional players. Times where a player can be on 4 teams in 4 years and not sit out for 5 minutes. At a time where COVID has given an extra year, which is really, it's been great for student athletes, but it's also really messed with rosters. At a time where high schools and prep schools are suffering because coaches are going after players in the transfer portal. At a time where you can pay a player and you can get in touch with a player, which is supposed to be illegal, in the transfer, and tell them before they get in the transfer portal to get in the transfer portal because you're going to give them $100,000 to come to their school. The things that are happening right now in college football, college basketball, collegiate athletics, I don't know how you say that Nick Saban's decision to step away from Alabama had nothing to do. I'm not saying it had everything to do, but to say it had nothing to do with the disaster that is collegiate athletics and the travesty that is the NCAA. This move by Nick Saban screams. When Jim Boeheim steps away, people say, well, he should have stepped away 4 or 5 years ago. When Coach K steps away, people go, oh my God, really? When Roy Williams steps away after he seems visibly upset at the way that things are going on, people go, okay, that seems a little bit non-coincidental. But when Nick Saban steps away after all these moves, and Jay Wright steps away from Villanova when he's 61 years old and potentially could have had a job anywhere in the country. Now that these moves have happened, one after the other, after the other, after the other, Nick Saban's will send ripple effects throughout college football, throughout college sports, because anybody who thinks that Nick Saban was done coaching, done recruiting, done facilitating, done building young men is out of their mind. National name, image, and likeness, national just craziness with everything going on with realignment, reclassification, the transfer portal. If you think that these high caliber Hall of Fame coaches are not making moves to get out of collegiate athletics because of the things that are happening right now, if you think that their decision is in no way connected to the fact that collegiate athletics has lost its model, then you're not paying attention. And if you didn't pay attention to all of the things that have happened and all of the moves that have been made that I've mentioned up to this point, the Nick Saban move should tell you more than anything else that college football, college athletics are damaged, and they are driving away the highest caliber leaders of sports. And that should hit home for you today.
That's right. Now, you're right. Everything you said is right. It's correct. The NCAA has a propensity to make bad decisions. I don't know why there's such a very bright group of men to get together and make these kind of decisions, especially when we going back to the 14 playoff. I mean, from then on, things have changed drastically, and the NIL, we are losing the battle of education in this country with these college kids.
Yeah.
They don't care about it, Daniel. They don't care about going to a science class or an English class or anything like that. They could give a damn about it. All they want to do is bounce from place to place to place, get their NIL money, maybe get a shot at the pros, and take it from there. It's disastrous. And you're right. Nick Saban walked away exactly because of that. He doesn't want to have to argue with the rest of the coaches about the transfer portal. He doesn't want to see his entire defensive team walk out because of the transfer portal. What good would a player at Alabama do if they left? Where could they go without being in a better spot than they were at Alabama? And there's 3 or 4 kids that have already wanted to leave or maybe go to the NFL. You know, Coach Saban was a maker of men, maker of young men. He actually demanded that they go to school and they account for themselves educationally. Sure, they got a 2.0. Who cares? As long as they're going to school and they're getting educated. I'd be willing to say that 75% of these kids that are bouncing around will never graduate college. Dad, I'll take that to the bank. Dad, I'll fight forever for that one right there. It's not possible. Now, if you're a graduate transfer and you've already got a degree and you're looking to get a master's, you want to go to Alabama for a year or two, hell, that makes a lot of sense. The only kids that I will give credit to are the graduate transfers that are already graduated and want to play ball some more because they're eligible to play more. It's a terrible situation, and you're right about it with Nick Saban. He did not want to face that and leave it for someone else.
Well, and here's my issue, okay, and we're gonna go deeper than this, and everything that you said, an extension of that, I agree with. You know, when you say, I would love to know the percentage of these student athletes that are actually going to get an education and or graduate, because the numbers are you know, probably staggering in the direction of these people will never get an education. They're not going to graduate unless they decide to do it when they're, you know, older, like Shaquille O'Neal did, if they decide to come back to school in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s, whatever that may be, when they realize that football doesn't last forever in that respect. But ultimately, when we look at the coaches that have bounced around here, because this is the part, you know, if a student athlete's listening right now going, okay, Dan, but, you know, you say that this transfer portal thing is a problem, but I want to be able to move around like my coaches do. Okay, that's the one thing that I understand. When a coach gives you their word and they screw you over, you should have the right to leave. I'm going to tell you how many coaches, when it comes to schools, I'm going to tell you the number of schools that are changing their head coach in college football. 27 as of right now. 27 institutions. That is more than 2 conferences put together. There's 10 conferences in Division I FBS football. More than 2 conferences in number-wise are changing. 27 head coaching changes. I remember getting on this show and talking about 3. I remember getting on this show, maybe we talk about 10. Maybe we talk about 6. 27 changes happening. And they're happening all over the country in all different conferences. Coaches being fired, coaches leaving, coaches having an interview. In the case of Bob Chesney, interviewed for the Syracuse job and didn't get it. But at Holy Cross, the families were in DEFCON 5, thinking he's going to leave. And he ended up leaving for James Madison. Kurt Signetti left that, I mentioned that earlier, and Bob Chesney left Holy Cross for James Madison. 27 moves with head coaches. And we're not talking about a slew of head coaches that were just fired. We're talking about coaches that retired, coaches that took other jobs. These coaches are in the transfer portal.
These institutions in realignment are in the transfer portal. I said this to Mike Oresco of the American Athletic Conference. I said, the transfer portal is a problem because there's a lot of things happening that should be illegal. There's a lot of things that are going on that are not great, and it's not teaching personal responsibility or good work ethic in a lot of ways. Although I believe there should be a way for a student athlete to be able to move to a better situation for them, I also think there's a lot of issues with the transfer portal that need to be corrected. And I said to him, just so you know, we talk about the transfer portal with student athletes now, but coaches and colleges have been in the transfer portal for years. He said, Dan, I like that. I might steal that. But this is the reality that we live in today. 27 changes. 27 fan bases get a new head coach. That's a big number, PJ. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's astounding. It really is. That really gives you food to think. Maybe a little drastic in what you were saying, but it's the same analogy is true when it comes to coaches and players. All I can say is that it's not the right thing to do, and the NCAA and again in their wisdom, they're making these decisions that are not good for the student athletes. We don't call them student athletes anymore. They're athletes. Now forget about the student athletes.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a little tough on the guys, but I want to see a young man compete in the classroom and on the field. And if he wants to go to another school to continue his education, that's fine. But don't go jumping from school to school just because you want a better image and you want to go to the NFL. If these kids want to act like thugs, let them go act like thugs.
So it's time to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. If we haven't already gotten your blood pressure up this morning, it is time for us to challenge that blood pressure of yours and talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars, since the last time the PJ has been here on the show, decided to fire their entire defensive staff. Not one guy, not the defensive coordinator, everybody, the defensive coordinator, and all of your minions walking papers. You're out of Jacksonville. What have I said on the show repeatedly? What did I say on the show just a little while ago about the Atlanta Falcons? They don't play defense. Who are the Jacksonville Jaguars interviewing? Defensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons, Ryan Nielsen. They don't play defense. So I am sitting here saying to myself, Doug Peterson, I like you. I'm a fan. I'm happy you're in Jacksonville. You just fired Mike Caldwell and his entire staff on the defensive side of the ball. And the remedy, potentially, in Jacksonville, is to hire a defensive coordinator that had a worse defense than you this past season. At times, the Jacksonville Jaguars led the nation in takeaways. The Atlanta Falcons have not played defense in 4 to 5 years. I have nothing against Ryan Nielsen. I don't know Ryan Nielsen. I'm just bringing up a point. Could be anybody in this job based on the statistics. The Atlanta Falcons, PJ, please save this for me. Give me a reason. Give me some thought on this. Is there a positive on this? How do you fire your entire defensive staff in Jacksonville and then consider hiring somebody from a team who has a horrendous defense that's worse than your defense? Why would you fire Mike Caldwell to get a coach from a team who doesn't play defense?
Oh, that's a good question. I've always liked Caldwell. I always thought he was a good, hard-nosed coach. There's something going on here that we're not privy to, and you and I are very close to this situation, very, very close to this situation. So something's going on with this association or the team itself that is not allowing these kids to play their potential. They talk a good game. They want to do this. They want to do that. Lawrence throws for 1 million yards and so on and so on. And Josh Allen's making a bunch of tackles and sacks. But something isn't right here. And I have to look at leadership. I'm not talking about, it could be the general manager, but I'm talking about Pedersen.
Yeah.
I was really enthralled with his hire 2 years ago. I thought it was a perfect scenario for Jacksonville. He's going to take Trevor Lawrence. He's going to turn him into a superstar, and really the team is going to take off with him. Well, something's wrong when you start out the season 8-3 and you wind up losing 5 of the last 6 games or whatever the hell it was. Something isn't right. Just like the Philadelphia Eagles. What's happening over there? You have to look at the coach, Nick Sirianni. You got to look at the coach. You got to look at Coach Pedersen and say, look at what I put in place here isn't working. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of everyone else, and I'm going to start all over again. And if the ownership wants to say that, go ahead. I mean, let's face it. Pedersen is a 500 coach right now after 2 years and tantalizing, just tantalizing us with what he could do offensively. And it hasn't come to fruition, and certainly not on the defensive side of the ball. I think they drafted well for defense. They got some good, young, fast players. But I don't know what to say. There isn't any easy way out of this situation. But when you're looking at a total dismissal of an entire staff, I think you have to look at the head coach. Now, what he's going to do going forward, I'm not sure. He didn't hire this person already, did he?
No.
Okay, all right. There's plenty of other defensive leaders out there that he can get that will probably bring a staff with him. He needs someone. He needs someone to really take charge here. Caldwell was a good defensive coordinator. I don't get it, but Pedersen needs to look in the mirror and say, "Listen, I've made some mistakes here. I've been here 2 years. I'm supposed to be this real bright guy, and all of a sudden I'm sitting here maybe with a 500 record. I'm not doing it." So he took drastic action. I mean, he got the balls to do it, and he did. It maybe not be the right one. I think maybe I would have kept Caldwell and got rid of everyone else, but Caldwell's going to find a job somewhere because he's that good. I don't know who Pedersen can bring in. Whoever he's talking to really has to hire a whole staff to do this. Yeah. He says, I'm not going to come to Jacksonville unless I can this guy, this guy, and this guy, and this guy. So he's going to go around and steal coaches from other players, which is what they do. There is no easy answer, Daniel, but it has to go. It has to stay with Pedersen.
Yeah, and I'm gonna devil's advocate myself because the Atlanta Falcons did improve their horrendous defense from last season to this season, getting themselves from the bottom of the NFL to the top 10 of the NFL in certain things. When we look at them by game, in some of these games, they allowed 10 points to the Carolina Panthers. So you look at that, but it was also Carolina this season. They allowed 24 to the Packers. They allowed 20 to the Lions, 23 to the Jaguars, 19 to the Texans, 16 to a terrible Washington team, 13 to the Buccaneers on the road. They won that game. They allowed 28 to the Titans on the road, 31 to the Vikings who didn't make the playoffs, 25 to the Cardinals who didn't make the playoffs. They allowed 15 to the Saints. They allowed 8 to the Jets who couldn't move the ball offensively a lot of times this season. Allowed 29 the second time around against the Buccaneers. Allowed 9 to the Panthers in a loss. Then allowed 10 to the Colts, 37 to the Bears, and 48 to the Saints. They have improved in yards per play in what they were giving up, and they've done some good things. But to me, if you're going to make a splash, so statistically, because I say when I state an opinion, back it up with facts, that's why I'm playing devil's advocate, because some of these statistics would refute me and say, hey, this could be a good hire, Ryan Nielsen, to come here. But here's my other side of it, and here's my rebuttal. The Atlanta Falcons just fired their head coach. Now, maybe he wasn't a good leader. Maybe his coordinators are better. But here's how I look at this. I mean, were the Falcons looking to hire Ryan Nielsen? Is that why maybe, you don't want the guy to get interviewed or whatever it may be? But this is my world. When you're looking for a coordinator to come onto your team and your team just missed the playoffs, why would you want to hire a coordinator from a team that didn't make the playoffs, a team that underachieved, a team from a division where you could go 500 and win the division. Now, granted, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have done some good things, and they're moving on in the playoffs. But the NFC South division, I predicted, would be the worst division in football this season, and they were the worst division in football this season based on the fact that the Cincinnati Bengals were the worst team in the AFC North, the only AFC North team of 4 to not make the playoffs, and they were 8-8. If they were in the NFC South, they would have won the division. So, and that was without Joe Burrow. Selling to a fan base in Jacksonville, we're going to bring in the defensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons, a team that has consistently struggled, consistently done nothing in the postseason, consistently tried to figure things out, consistently not had direction. We're going to hire their defensive coordinator. Now, do I blame him for Arthur Smith's problems? No. Do I blame him for Atlanta's overall problems and not using Kyle Pitts effectively? No, he's not the offensive coordinator. But how do you sell to a fan base? Let's say, okay, you did improve Atlanta's defense. You made Atlanta's defense better. You did. Okay, that's the rebuttal against me. But my rebuttal back to you is, do you invigorate your fan base in Jacksonville by saying, we just missed the playoffs and we're firing our defensive staff to bring in a defensive leader who missed the playoffs as well on a team who has underperformed in recent history? I don't think you can sell that, PJ.
No, you can't. I don't think we're going to have the answer to this situation in the near future. I think probably maybe after the playoffs maybe wind down and there's a couple teams left, I think maybe Pedersen will try to make a move. He may be trying to make a move to someone that already has a job in one of the playoff teams. So he's got a big job ahead of him, but I don't want to belabor it back because I like the guy. I really do. I just think that it has to rest with the head coach. And as drastic as that move was to fire the entire defensive staff, perhaps that's the only way he could go.
Well, here's my other, and there's only 3 guys that have been retained on the defensive staff of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Outside linebackers coach Bill Shuey, assistant defensive line coach Rory Segrest, and defensive quality control coach Patrick Riley. Those are the only, currently on the Jaguars official website this morning, those are the only 3 faces and names that are on the defensive side of the ball. Before we come off the Jaguars here, PJ, I want to go to a little bit more here because I talk about how do you sell bringing somebody in from a losing team, but here's a little wrinkle. What if you bring in a head coach to be a coordinator? Not a coordinator from a losing team to be your coordinator, but a head coach, albeit from a losing team, to be your coordinator. What if the Jaguars brought in Ron Rivera?
That sounds good, but I'd rather, if you're going to go that route, I'd rather you see bring in Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
These guys are defensive coordinators. These guys are defensive coaches. Ron Rivera probably would swallow his ego to take a lesser job, and Vrabel just may want to do it just to keep busy. Certainly, I don't think either Vrabel or Ron Rivera would be up for the Jaguars job if something happened to Pedersen. I don't think that's the point here. But the point for either one of these gentlemen could really, really enhance our defense. We have a bunch of kids that can play. Sure, there's some defensive problems. There's some injury problems. There's always injury problems. It's just how good are you? That's why you got 53 men. You got to mix and match. You got to make things work. If Vrabel were to come in with his no-nonsense approach, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, and you bring it up, okay? You brought it up. Mike Vrabel, somebody that I think would be highly coveted as a head coach wherever, college, pro. If you bring him in and you say, okay, Vrabel, you work under Doug Peterson, you be the defensive coordinator, and if anything happens that down the road they want to move on from Doug Peterson, you got Vrabel on the staff already. That would be a huge hire. If the Jaguars could pull that off, if Shad Khan, for all the money that they spend to revamp Jacksonville, if Shad Khan turned around and said, I'm going to go and get the head coach that we had to coach against for the last many years, and I'm going to make him my defensive coordinator. I'm going to so on my staff going into 2024-25, I'm going to have 50% of last season's head coaches in the AFC South. I'm going to have Doug Peterson and Mike Vrabel. Oh, my gosh. That would be beautiful. Now, I think Mike Vrabel can argue that he's a head coach. I think Mike Vrabel, can potentially get one of these other jobs. But let's say Shad Khan pitches to him and says, listen, we respect you. We've gone against you. We're going to pay you very handsomely to become our defensive coordinator. Jacksonville, that's a great thought, PJ. One of your best thoughts ever. That, to me, would be a really, really good move because the fans would go nuts. I think the Titans would go a little nuts. I think the Texans and the Colts would go a little bit on alert there. And I think the entire NFL would be talking about how Jacksonville somehow pulled a coup and have Doug Peterson and Mike Vrabel on the same staff. I think that would be an incredible threading the needle move. You came up with the idea, so you get the credit for it. But if you want the Jacksonville Jaguars to be nationally talked about for the next week, you make that move. If you want them to be talked about for the next months going into the season, you make that move. Jacksonville, in making a move for Mike Vrabel to be their defensive coordinator, would be relevant in the national and international media from now until game 1 of the 2024-25 season.
Let's hope that they make a move real quick, because I know our fan base has been let down so much over the years, and you and I are both staunch advocates of the team, and we know where the offense is going, even though there's still problems on the side of the ball. I'd like to see, finally they went yard with Ridley. I've been saying all season long, get him down the field, throw the damn ball down the field.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's food for thought. We got playoff games.
Yeah, so we got 4 playoff games. I'm reserving my right to not tell you who I think is going to win the last one because I'm doing a Buffalo Bills Kansas City Chiefs pregame show at Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville, New York on game day this Sunday, January 21st, Kansas City at Buffalo. We will be the pregame show for you. I will be joined by Jeff Cook, the Beeville Bills backers president. So the Beeville has a huge Buffalo Bills fan base bar, and that's Pizza Man. And Jeff Cook and I are going to be together on stage at Pizza Man from 4:30 to 5:30. We'll be off the air at 5:30. It gives you an hour to get set, get settled, get your pizza and your wings and all the other favorites at Pizza Man, and watch kickoff at 6:30. So I will not be giving my prediction for that game until our live show, but I will give my prediction for the other 3 games that we got going on, PJ. So this is what it looks like in the grand scheme of things. This is how it shakes down in the NFL. We have 2 games on Saturday. We have 2 games on Sunday in this divisional round. The 2 games on Saturday, Houston at Baltimore in the AFC is at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN and ABC. And then Green Bay at San Francisco on Fox at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's start with Houston and Baltimore. What are your thoughts? Who wins the game?
I think CJ is going to grow up a little bit in this game. He's really going to be tested. He's a remarkable young man. I'm really happy for him. I'm glad that he's proven all us doubters, including me, wrong. I mean, he is definitely the Offensive Player of the Year in the NFC. No doubt about it. That's just slam dunk. But you're playing one of the most prolific players in football, which is Lamar Jackson. And if I were TJ, I would be looking at Mr. Jackson, how he plays, how he warms up, how he does this, how he does that. Stroud doesn't run, which is, thank goodness he doesn't. He does every once in a while, but not a chosen route like Jackson takes off and runs.
Yeah.
I don't like that. You know that. So, but what Mr. Jackson does is that he uses his tight end almost exclusively.
Yeah.
And they had some rough going here late in the year because his big tight end Mark Andrews was hurt. And look at, just like Kelsey's a security blanket for Mahomes, Andrews is a security blanket for Jackson. He looks for Andrews on every play, on every pass play. But he's so fast in his mind that he can switch around and make the throws. So I think that Baltimore's defense will shut down Mr. Stroud, and I think Lamar Jackson will run like he usually does and throws the ball to Mark Andrews, and they win the game.
Yeah, I mean, great analysis of the game. I think this is, listen, the Houston Texans have been undervalued, and I would put myself in that category as well. I did not see them turning this thing around as quick as they did. I don't know if they saw themselves turning this thing around as quick as they have here in the NFL, and C.J. Stroud's first season and DeMeco Ryans' first season as a head coach coming from the San Francisco 49ers. So, to me, it's been a very pleasant season for Houston. They're obviously not done. They got another game to play. This isn't like I'm just happy to be here. I think C.J. Stroud, he has proven that he can throw the ball yard. He has proven that he could do the big-time pass play. He has proven that the moment is not too big for him. But they're going to Baltimore. Now, Houston, remind you, folks, they play inside. Okay, they play inside. They have a dome. It's a very nice arena. I've been there multiple times. I've been there for most recent. The last time I was down there was for the Final Four in 2016. So they have NRG Stadium's a very nice stadium. But when you go to Baltimore, it's going to be probably 18 degrees outside, 20 degrees, something like that. Could be 11 when they play this game. Sun's going to be going down in the middle of this game, probably around halftime, if not maybe a little bit before. So you're playing outside Houston. Baltimore knows what it's like. Lamar Jackson is healthy in the postseason, thank freaking goodness, so we can actually see what Baltimore's made of with a full go. Mark Andrews working his way back. Isaiah Likely, arguably the best backup tight end in the nation in the NFL. You have Gus Edwards, Old Faithful. You have a defense that's done some nice things, gotten people excited. So to me, and you have Zay Flowers, who I predicted would go to the Baltimore Ravens because he's a perfect fit for their offense as a runner and a receiver, marked down as a wide receiver, but he did both at BC. I covered him there. I interviewed him there, and I thought he was perfect for this team, and he is perfect for this team, and he's proven that. And if not for guys like C.J. Stroud, we'd be talking about Zay Flowers potentially being up there for AFC Offensive Player of the Year. So Baltimore's got a ton of firepower going into this game. Houston has a ton going for them as well. I just think Baltimore's too much. I think Baltimore does too much. I think Baltimore is the strongest team left at the moment based on what I'm seeing and what I saw going in. I think Baltimore, of the 8 teams remaining, is the strongest team at this moment. And I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens to win the game. The next game that we have up here, PJ, you and I got to pick. Green Bay at...
Here, I'd like to say with the Stroud deal.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're right. It's going to be bitterly cold up there in Baltimore, and no matter where they are. We saw this last weekend where a really good quarterback, Tua, just couldn't play. I mean, he was so uncomfortable. He first of all, he doesn't like to get hit anyway. Yeah. That I know. And for him to try to throw the ball with his little lefty motion, with the ball's probably frozen, it didn't look good. It looked good. And now someone like Tua can't handle the cold. C.J. Stroud is going to have to handle the cold, and we're gonna know up front if it's really bad weather, will he be able to handle the cold or not? Besides the defense of Baltimore. Go ahead. We got. What, you got Green Bay at...
Green Bay at San Francisco, the two teams facing off against each other that together in the last 3 years have combined to knock out the Dallas Cowboys 3 years in a row. San Francisco doing it twice, the Packers doing it in Dallas. Dallas did not lose a game at home at AT&T Stadium this season until they lost in the playoffs in such a big way. At one point, they were down by 32 points, 48-16. Jordan Love is in his first season as the starting quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers for 3 decades' time had Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. 2 names in 3 decades. Not a lot of NFL franchises can say that. And looking at what they did, both winning a Super Bowl, now you have Jordan Love. And I told people, give it some time. Can lightning strike 3 times? Have we ever heard of that happening? And here's Jordan Love. The team is 9-8. They make the playoffs. They beat down the Dallas Cowboys and continue the reality that the Dallas Cowboys are one team in the regular season and a totally different team in the postseason when everything gets reset to 0-0. The Green Bay Packers face off against the San Francisco 49ers, who have had themselves a stunning season outside of a 3-game skid early on. Brock Purdy has fought through injury. Brandon Ayuk has fought through injury. Deebo Samuel has fought through injury. Christian McCaffrey has fought through injury. And here's a team that came in arguably with the number 1 defense in the country, and it goes into the postseason arguably with the number 1 defense in the country. San Francisco will be hosting the Green Bay Packers. Do you believe that San Fran will move forward, or do you side with your wife and pick Green Bay?
Yeah, going to side with MT. I'm not going to side with MT. But I do have to eat crow again there. Papa J going to eat crow again on Jordan Love. I didn't see this coming. I didn't think he had the kind of moxie that he's proven. I know he had to learn a lot from Aaron Rodgers, but he was very quiet. He's a man of God, which is really good.
Yeah.
And he turned the trick. This is a whole different story, though. Excuse me. A whole different story. You got the best defense probably in the NFL, and you got a pretty loaded offense that can score at will just about anywhere on the field. They got the best running back, probably the best wide receiver. You know, there's San Francisco's got it all, and I wouldn't be surprised that if San Francisco meets Baltimore in the Super Bowl. But first, they've got to get by Green Bay. But Green Bay's going to be under the gun here. This one could get ugly early. But if not, if Love can hang in there, he's got a chance to pull it off, but I doubt it.
Yeah, I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers in this game as well. The San Francisco 49ers, to me, are, right now, in my opinion, the number 2 team in the nation behind the Baltimore Ravens. I believe these are the 2 best teams. They obviously show that as being the number 1 seeds in their respective sides of the NFL, Ravens in the AFC, and the Niners in the NFC. So these 2 teams are the teams that you could anticipate going into it would be the ones in the Super Bowl. But there's some other teams out there. There's some talented teams out there. Everybody has been vulnerable this season for the most part, except for kind of Baltimore. 13 wins. Led the nation. 32 franchises. We know what it's like to see a healthy Baltimore now because we have one. And hopefully with Mark Andrews coming back and everybody staying healthy, we'll continue to have one. San Francisco, during COVID, they were a team more than any other team in America just a few years ago that I wondered if they were going to be able to field a roster because of how many people were out due to COVID or injury. Now the San Francisco 49ers have changed the game. The San Francisco 49ers are not talked about a lot because everybody's talking about Kansas City, but the San Francisco 49ers with different quarterbacks have given themselves great opportunities to make the Super Bowl or get really close. The Baltimore Ravens, I felt like I was the only person in a room full of crickets that said Lamar Jackson will be a successful quarterback in the NFL. And now he's leading the team with the best record. I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers in this game, but I have to eat crow as well that I did not think Jordan Love. Now, I can't say that I was negative on Jordan Love. I can't say I was hating on Jordan Love. I can't say that I really said a lot of really anything bad about Jordan Love. But I didn't anticipate that they would make the playoffs. I thought it would take some time. I never knocked him. I told everybody to be patient. But I didn't see them making it in his first season as a starter, and they have. I think Green Bay's got a lot
I think they're playing with house money. They got a lot of injured guys, though, going into this game. A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, Christian Watson. Those are your 2 starting running backs. That's your starting wide receiver. I'm going to go with San Francisco, but don't be surprised if Green Bay doesn't make everybody nervous for 2 weeks in a row. I think San Francisco will pull away, though. Sunday, January 21st, we have a doubleheader as well. We have Tampa Bay at Detroit. Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff. 2 guys that resurrected their career. There was a time where people thought, myself included, that Baker Mayfield would never start in the NFL again and would have to go to one of the other leagues, the USFL, the XFL, the CFL. Jared Goff, I thought, oh my goodness, is he going to be one of those guys that goes down as a number 1 overall pick that just never materialized? He went to a Super Bowl with the Rams, but they disappeared in that game against the Patriots in one of the worst Super Bowl games I've ever seen in my life when it comes to scoring. Tampa Bay at Detroit. If you're not a fan of either, you're rooting for both. You're rooting for Baker. You're rooting for Jared Goff. You're rooting for Tampa Bay, who's in the playoffs, sans Brady, and Detroit, who won their first playoff game in 31 years. The last time Detroit won a playoff game, I was 7 years old. I'm 38 now. Tampa Bay at Detroit, PJ. 3 o'clock on NBC on Sunday. Who do you got?
Kudos to Coach Campbell. He's a real winner. I remember him playing tight end for years, and he's morphed himself into a hell of a coach.
Yeah.
This is going to be a fun game to watch. I'm sure that Baker's going to be all over the field doing this glue stuff. And Goff is just Goff. I mean, he's just a solid quarterback. Big arm. They're playing indoors. Really no. I know Tampa doesn't like playing on artificial. They'd rather have the grass. But I think that there's really no. This is a pick'em game, frankly. Detroit should be favored because they won their division rather easily, and Tampa just sort of squeezed in. But the last 2 games that Tampa played have been giant. So, with that being said, Tampa has a shot to do this, but I don't think so. I think Detroit scores just too many points.
Give me Detroit Rock City, baby. I'm going with the Detroit Lions in this game. I believe that Tampa, no matter what happens in this matchup, had themselves a good season. I believe that Tampa has found something in Baker Mayfield, and he has proven me wrong, and I'm so happy that he did. I'm happy for the people of Tampa. The only person I'm not happy for in Tampa is Kyle Trask, because I want to see him get an opportunity. Go
Gators.
There it is. So, Baker Mayfield, seeing what he can do, what he has done, has been awesome. Again, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. He did drop a pass toward the end zone. Atypical. Got to catch those things. Rashad White has done a good job. And Cade Otton has come up here in this offense for Tampa. Tampa's defense, it doesn't get a lot of credit, was good when Tom Brady was their quarterback. And so now they go into Detroit. Detroit understands this is a formidable opponent. This might be one of the most formidable opponents that Detroit has seen in recent weeks. But Detroit, they're on a mission. Detroit is gritty. Not saying Tampa's not gritty, but Detroit knows what it's like. They felt it. They've understood it. They seem like a team of destiny. And I'm taking the Detroit Lions because I picked them to win the division this year in the preseason, sitting next to Papa Joe in St. Augustine. And I will pick them again today to move forward in the playoffs. PJ, the last game I am not going to pick until Sunday because I want to do it in front of the Bills fans. I'm either going to have a room full of fans that want to throw me out of the building, or I'm going to have a bunch of fans and I'm going to jump off the stage and they're going to air surf me. One of 2 things is going to happen on Sunday. But you get to pick this one. I will pick it on Sunday. I already know who I'm picking, but I will do it on Sunday. You get to pick this one. Kansas City at Buffalo. All you, PJ. What do you got?
This is game of the year number 3 here. This will be a barn burner. This will be a fun one to watch. I can't wait for it. Frankly, I'd rather skip the other 3 games and watch this one. This one is going to be this is going to be what football is about in the NFL.
Yeah.
This is going to be serious. both teams have high-powered offenses. Both teams have pretty good defenses. They have star quarterbacks. They're both relatively even, except for Kansas City being a Super Bowl champion and Buffalo not getting there yet. Josh Allen still has a lot to prove. I watched that game last weekend, and he was throwing the ball all over the place. All of a sudden, he sprints out and starts up the field. He runs away from defensive backs.
Yeah.
How many quarterbacks that are 6'5", 240 can run away from defensive backs? Not too many of them that he did. Unfortunately, I think KT's got a little bit too much. This is going to be a back-and-forth game. I think it's going to be a great game to watch, and the fans should love it.
PJ going with the Kansas City Chiefs in this one. I will be giving you my pick, like Ryan Seacrest, on Sunday. I'm going to be waiting. You're going to have to wait for me. So PJ's going with the Chiefs. Mine will be told between 4:30 and 5:30 p.m. in front of a bunch of Baldwinsville Bills backers. The Beeville Bills Backers Club, that group, is going to be out and proud. So many Bills fans at the Pizza Man Pub all throughout the season and all throughout the year. They will be out there. I will be with the president of the Beeville Bills Backers, Jeff Cook. We call him Cookie. And Cookie and I are going to be on stage having some fun, 4:30 to 5:30 this Sunday, January 21st. The game kicks off at 6:30. Come hang out with us for an hour. Get your food, get your seat, and watch the game at Pizza Man. PJ, as always, I appreciate the time. I am happy that you were healthy enough to come to the show today and get on the air with me. I miss you like crazy. I look forward to seeing you soon. And I'm always praying for you, MT, those wonderful cats, and, of course, my big bro, Joey.
I hung in there pretty good today, I got to admit.
You did.
All right, see you later.
Take care. That coming from Papa Joe here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. One more step aside before we wrap up today's show. We'll be back after this.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
GG Cards and Breaks. Like, comment, subscribe.
GG Cards and Breaks, located for you on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York, is just a tremendous and amazing sports card shop. They have everything. They have basketball, football, baseball, soccer, hockey, all sports packs, AEW. They also have Pokemon, as well as the new Disney Lorcana. You can find all of that on site, on location at GG Cards and Breaks. They're open 7 days a week from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sundays.
They have graded cards, packs, singles, boxes, and they have the Panini NFL Player of the Day going on for the next 32 days. It started yesterday, Wednesday, January 17th. It's an awesome promotion from Panini that can end up with you getting a bunch of swag, and you definitely got to go in to GG Cards and Breaks. Check it out. You can watch my video and see what this promotion is all about, how you can do it, how you get involved. I got some awesome cards being a part of the promotion. You can do the same thing. I got a really cool Anthony Richardson that you can't buy because it only comes for this NFL Player of the Day Panini promotion that's going on site at GG Cards and Breaks. So head off to GG's today. Let them know that Wake Up Call sent you. Say DT sent me in, whatever that may be. We appreciate you for going in. We appreciate you for being a part of the hobby. It gets all of us sports fans closer to our teams, closer to our favorite players, and you can keep those memories forever. You can pass them down to your children. You can give them to your niece and your nephew. I'm getting my godson involved in sports card collecting. It's a beautiful thing. My Uncle Bill, God bless him in heaven, he got me involved in a really big way. It's something that just transcends time. I have so many memories with my G-Mama, my Gammy, my mom when it comes to sports card collecting. So you can have that same hobby, new memories today. Make a memory at GG Cards and Breaks, doing something fun, being a big kid, bringing your kids, and being a part of such a wonderful local business in our community. GG Cards and Breaks, 639 Delmar Place, Syracuse, New York, right off of Teal Ave. Go there today. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from the New Look Studios with all of this awesome stuff. Everything in this studio has meaning. Literally everything has meaning. If it doesn't have meaning, it's not in here. So everything has meaning. There's stuff off to the side that we didn't even show you here that has a ton of meaning to it. Shout out to my Jacksonville Jaguars tin. You see that right there. You see the Lemoyne Dolphin. Well, if you go right to the right of that Dolphin, you see that white Jaguars tin. You can get your team tins today and a bunch of different tins at Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Go get your favorite team's tin, including all the teams that are still in the playoffs and whoever you're a fan of in the NFL, and so on and so forth. College, they have MLB. They got a bunch of stuff out there for you. Go and get your team tin today. And if you get a tin on site at Ma and Pa's on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York, you get half-price refills for the rest of your life. So that beautiful Jaguars tin gets me half-price refills for the rest of my entire life, and I can get multiple flavors at the same time because they have little dividers they put in there. And who doesn't need popcorn and kettle corn when they're watching the game? Go to Ma and Pa's today. Let them know the DT sent you. Get your tin. Mine's Jaguars. It's cool as all get out. You can go get yours today. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning into the show. Facebook.com/WakeUpCallDT, YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com. all around the world. You can also connect with us on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, YouTube. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Very easy to do. We say it all the time. Or one word, Wake Up Call DT. You'll find us on all of these outlets. Subscribe. When you go and you find us here, subscribe, follow. Click the button, whatever it says. If it says subscribe, follow, whatever it is, so that you'll always be connected to the show, and your phone, your device will update you when I add episodes, so you never miss anything again. The great thing about these podcasting platforms is that when you're in your car and you're on a long drive or a short drive, you can listen to Wake Up Call just like we're on traditional radio like we used to be. So many ways to connect with us through audio and video, and here's a bunch of ways to do it. Search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT today. We make it very hard for you to not find us. It's very easy, very accessible, and very much with you all around the world. Big time thanks to all of our incredible partners in Central and Upstate New York. Can't thank you all enough. Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, GG Cards and Breaks, PB&J's Lunchbox, Avicoli's Great Lakes Honda City, Pizza Man, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Chick-fil-A Clay, Pizza, or pardon me, I said Pizza Man, I'll say Pizza Man again. We're going to be there on Sunday. I'm very excited, so I felt like saying it. Mother's Cupboard, where I was yesterday. I'm going to be featuring a special with Jason Leone, the Oswego Lakers head coach of men's basketball. They're ranked 6th in the nation, our Oswego State Lakers men's basketball team, right here in upstate New York. Ranked 6th in the nation of over 400 Division III men's basketball teams. Ranked 6th. Let that sink in for a minute. Canine Campground Dog Boarding. So, a lot of great stuff coming up. Like I said, with Mother's Cupboard and beyond. And, of course, we are the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Lemoyne College Dolphins. It's Fins Up every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. The Dolphins are with us during Dolphin Time on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. We underpromise and overdeliver. We've done that for 2+ years in our exclusive partnership with Lemoyne, getting a ton of this content. First and third Wednesday of each month, AD and DT with Athletics Director Bob Beretta and myself, Dan Tortora. Second and fourth Wednesday, the Dolphin Dive, diving into stories of student athletes, coaches, administration, future Dolphins, and alumni, including President Dr. Linda Lemura, Chair of the Board, Mr. Pete DeLaura. So many wonderful guests. You will find them all inside of the Dolphin Dive. You can find all of this content by going to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe. Hit the notification bell. You'll find the playlist for Lemoyne on our YouTube channel. You can also find them on wakeupcalldt.com underneath exclusive partners. As always, for more information, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com. And you know what it is, folks. Fins way up. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse are exclusive multimedia marketing partners with Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Got some great news coming up with the Bobcats. I am very impatiently wanting to tell you this news. I'm going to tell you it very, very soon. I promise. I will. Oh, I can't wait. I cannot wait. We got a really cool way of telling you as well. So the Bobcats with us every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. You can find men's and women's basketball going on right now. Men's basketball back in action in the second half of their season. They're ranked number 1 in the nation. Their first game in the second half of their season happens tonight, Thursday, January 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, on site at home, and their home gym is Allen Hall at OCC. So you can go to OCC tonight to Allen Hall to see the Bobcats men's basketball team start the second half of their season, ranked number 1 in the nation, tonight, Thursday, January 18th at 8 p.m. We look forward to seeing you out there. And, of course, the women's basketball team will get cracking at it for the second half of their season, ranked number 2 in the nation, and they'll be coming up very soon here in January, and cannot wait to see them back at home in February. So a lot of great stuff coming up, men's and women's soccer, baseball, esports, and more. You could find your Bobcats always on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Hit the notification bell, click subscribe, find our BSC Syracuse playlist on our YouTube channel for more information. Or you can also find them by going to wakeupcalldt.com underneath the exclusive partners tab. For more information, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com. And you know what it is. Go Bobcats. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, I hope you have a fantastic day. I look forward to seeing you tonight to see the Bobcats men's basketball team in their first game in the second half of their season. Folks, they are ranked number 1 in the nation. Did you hear what I said to you? The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats men's basketball team is ranked number 1 in the nation. The Oswego State Lakers men's basketball team is ranked number 6 in the nation of over 400 schools. You got a lot of things going on in your backyard. You best be getting to these games. Awesome high schools, wonderful colleges and universities, plenty for you to do to warm up on a cold night here in winter in central New York and upstate New York. We look forward to seeing you out there tonight, Thursday, January 18th, 8 p.m., Allen Hall on the OCC campus to watch Bryan and Stratton men's basketball. Can't wait. Very excited. Ma and Pa's giving you what's poppin'. Head off to Ma and Pa's today. Get your tin. I got my Jaguars one right here in the studio. Big time thanks to Dave Pasiak, the Linden Hornets men's basketball head coach. Big time thanks to Papa Joe, my encyclopedia of the sports world. I hope that you have enjoyed our conversations. Dave, incredible. PJ, incredible. I love you both very much. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope you stay safe. I hope you stay warm. Please be nice to each other. Be kind. And if someone has a difference of opinion, have a nice conversation with them over lunch or dinner and see if you guys can't teach each other something. Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, X at CallDT, Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. As always, God bless. No stress. Do